1st, 2022 to order. This is being convened by electronic means. And if you leave the meeting for any reason, if you're online, please let the clerk know just so we can confirm quorum. You must enable your video to confirm quorum, and if your video is disabled, you'll be marked absent for that portion of the meeting. So just a reminder to stay in contact with the clerk. Any council members attending by electronic means, if you lose connection, we will recess until the connection is restored. And public can follow these proceedings on the live stream and YouTube link, which is on Twitter @VanCityClerk. As always, we acknowledge, especially today, National Indigenous Peoples Day, that we're on the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, and thank them for their generosity to all of us as we move forward building a true city of reconciliation. Thanks to staff, especially clerks today who are having a long one, and city management too. So thank you. Clerks, can we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Stewart in the chair. Councillor Carr.
Here.
Councillor DeGenova.
Present.
Councillor Fry.
Present.
Councillor Swanson.
Here.
Councillor Hardwood has a leave of absence for personal reasons. Councillor Wiebe.
Present.
Councillor Boyle.
Present.
Councillor Dominato. Councillor Bly.
Present.
Councillor Kirby-Young. You have quorum, Mayor Stewart.
Thank you so much. So just some preliminaries here. The public may participate by phone or speak in person or submit written comments to council. Speakers have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit to the comments and the merits of the report being considered and support whether they support or state whether they support or oppose the recommendations. You can only speak once, and it'd be great if you follow along on Twitter @VanCityClerk for update. Any comments can also be submitted in writing vancouver.ca/public-hearing-comments, and that's all on Twitter too. Speakers who pre-registered will help you through your presentation, but it's helpful if you say next. And due to our longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, I just remind council that when addressing speakers and staff to avoid using gendered honorifics and instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. We're a quasi-judicial body here tonight, which means that council is only to consider the merits of the rezoning application or heritage designation. We can ask clarifying questions from speakers, but should save debate until after the close of the speakers list. We can approve applications, we can refuse applications, or we can refer them back to staff for further consideration. That's our role here this evening. If we don't conclude hearing from all speakers this evening, we'll recess and reconvene on June 29th at 6 p.m. June 29th at 6 p.m. if we don't finish here today. First item is the heritage designation at 347 West Pender Street. Oh, sorry, the item's been withdrawn and postponed to the July 5th public hearing, just in case you've missed that. The heritage designation at 347 West Pender is withdrawn and postponed until July 5th. So we're going to move to item 2, which is the CD1 rezoning on 1332 Furlough Street. Just ask at the beginning, anyone have a conflict of interest on this? I don't hear any. So the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence.
This is an application by Henrique Partners Architects to rezone 1332 Furlough Street and 1065 Harwood Street from residential district to comprehensive development district to permit the development of a 33-story residential building with 279 secured rental units, of which 20% of the floor area is secured as below market rental units, a height of 91.4 meters and a floor space ratio of 12.61 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval subject to the conditions set out in the summary and recommendation of the public hearing agenda. The following correspondence has been received since the referral to the public hearing. 16 pieces of correspondence in support, 8 pieces of correspondence in opposition, and 1 piece of correspondence dealing with other aspects of the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Thank you so much. For anybody who wants to speak to this item, the number is 3538610 code 1061445 1061445 and that number is available on Twitter, and it's also available on the live stream. We have our, just going to check here, council, in terms of speakers. Just checking the speakers list here. Speakers list for today. Is it today's 22nd, 21st? 1 second here, council. Too many emails. 23rd. Oh. Sorry, council, I'm just missing the speakers list here. Clerks, do we have any speakers for this one as I'm looking for my list?
9 speakers, Mayor.
9 speakers.
Registered.
Great. Okay, well, let's see the presentation. Go ahead, staff. We have Carly Rosenblatt from the Rezoning Center.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Carly Rosenblatt, and I'm the rezoning planner for this application, which proposes to rezone under the West End rental policy. The site is made up of 2 lots at the northeast corner of Furlough and Harwood Street. Both properties and surrounding area are zoned RM5A, with nearby sites also zoned CD1. The site is over 17,000 square feet in size and occupied by 2 3-story purpose-built rental buildings from 1955 and 1954 that have a total of 48 rental units.
Point of privilege, Mayor. Sorry to interrupt. I'm not seeing the presentation on the screen in the council chamber.
Okay. In the council chamber. Okay. I'll just ask the clerks to check that.
Thank you.
Clerks, can you just let me know when we can see it in council chamber?
Mayor, there's only staff in chamber right now, but it may take a little while to load. I'm not sure how long.
Okay, why don't we just proceed then? Thanks. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's located 3 blocks south of Davie Village and surrounded by low-rise and mid-rise buildings, with taller buildings facing Burrard Street. The site is located in the West End neighborhood. It is well served by public transit, with SkyTrain located 1 kilometer away and bus service along Davie, Burrard, and Pacific Street. Multiple bikeways, represented with a blue line, are located within 2 blocks of the site. Located within 800 meters are several parks, childcare facilities, and community spaces. The property is close to many amenities. 3 policies guide this site, which is located in the Burrard corridor of the West End Plan, and also eligible for rezoning under the rezoning policy for the West End, which allows for strata and social housing known as inclusionary housing. Shown on the right is the enabling policy, the 2020 West End rental policy, which allows for 100% rental as an alternative to inclusionary housing. This application is the first to be considered under the West End rental policy and requires 100% secured rental housing with a minimum of 20% of the floor area at below market rents. The rental housing stock official development plan requires 1-for-1 replacement of existing rental housing units. The 48 existing rental units are required to be replaced. In 2017, the property owners submitted a rezoning application, which was later withdrawn prior to the 2021 application before you tonight. At the time of the 2021 rezoning submission, only 2 out of the 48 rental units were tenanted. The other 46 units were vacated prior to the submission of the 2021 rezoning application. Tenants in the 2 rented units qualify for tenant protection. The draft tenant relocation plan offers eligible tenants the right to return to one of the below market rental units or to the new market rental units at a 20% discount to market rates. The applicant has confirmed that all eligible previous tenants who vacated since the 2017 rezoning application have received compensation under the applicable tenant relocation and protection policy. 40 out of the 48 units had tenants eligible under the tenant relocation plan. The original application came in on April 7th, 2021, which was revised on October 21st, 2021, to comply with policy height requirements and the maximum floor plate sizes. The policy retains the plan's limits for building heights in the Burrard corridor of up to 300 feet, subject to urban design performance and view cones. This maximum height applies to all new development in the corridor to manage scale and minimize shadows onto public spaces, including Davie Village. This application is proposing a 33-story building with 279 secured rental units, of which 20% of the residential floor area would be secured at below market rental rates, approximately 55 units. The density is 12.61 FSR and the building height is 300 feet. It proposes a floor area just over 217,800 square feet and parking is accessed from the lane. The project is estimated to contribute approximately 977 construction jobs. The applicant has incorporated 35% family units for both the market and below market rental units. This is a view from Furlough Street. 80% of the units will be rented at market rental rates. Proposed average unit sizes range from studios at 368 square feet to 911 square feet for 3-bedroom units. This slide demonstrates a comparison between market rental and home ownership costs for housing in Vancouver's west side. The blue box on the left shows the average market rent for newer buildings with average household income served. The orange box on the right shows the average monthly cost for home ownership and the average household income served, as well as the cost of a 20% down payment. Both market rental rates and below market rates will ultimately be below the monthly cost of home ownership. Rental units would be secured through a housing agreement, which limits the rates at which rents for the below market rental units may be increased, even on a change in tenancy. 20% of the residential floor area will be secured at below market rental rates. Of the 20%, the affordability levels include 70% of the below market rental units at 20% below the CMHC average market rents for the English Bay area at the time of occupancy. As an example, the 2021 CMHC rents and household income served are shown in the pink box on the left. The remaining 30% will be rented at 50% below the CMHC average market rents. The yellow box on the right shows an example of the rates from 2021. On unit turnover, rents in the below market rental units will be reset to the CMHC average market rent. A virtual open house was held in May 2021 and 89 pieces of correspondence were received. Support was expressed for the height, density, and massing, the addition of secured rental housing, and proposed building design. Folks expressed concern about the height and density not fitting into the neighborhood, casting shadows, and excessive parking which may contribute to traffic and congestion. In response to concerns, staff note the height and density align with the height and form of development anticipated under the West End rezoning policy. The new shadows cast still maintain sunlight onto the north side of Davie Street at 10 to 4 at the equinoxes, an important village in the West End. The project will comply with the parking bylaw, and the proposal is well served by public transit and cycling infrastructure. Conditions in the report require enhanced safety measures for all roadway users, including updated lighting and traffic signals. Per the CAC review, and after considering the market rental and below market rental, Real Estate Services concluded there is no land lift generated due to the cost of securing the below market rental floor area. The site is also subject to the DCLs. However, the applicant is seeking the citywide DCL waiver with a value of approximately $4 million. The application is also subject to the public art policy and required to provide public art of $431,412. In summary, staff recommends approval of this application subject to the conditions in Appendix B as it meets the intent of the West End Community Plan and West End Rental Policy. The application would contribute 279 secured rental units, including 55 below market rental units. This concludes my presentation. Both staff and the applicant team are available to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much for that. I will be right to the applicant. Just 1 second, please. I'm just chatting with the clerk. Council, we've had some intermittent video issues, so we're going to just take 5 minutes to see if we can sort it out for good. So at 6:17, let's come back at 6:22. So see you in 5 minutes. Cone that we've everything shipshape. So now I'm going to ask if the applicant is available to speak to this item.
Mayor Kennedy Stewart, yes. My name is Jeff Skinner with Post Properties. Just like to thank Parent Council for the opportunity to hear both of our projects this evening. And also thank Carly for her presentation, very clear and concise. Thank you. I'm joined here tonight by members of my team, Kyle Wright and Rebecca Chaster, both of Post Properties, Sean Lapointe, our architect from Enriquez and Partners, James Todd, our tenant relocation specialist with Somerville Community Relations, and James Lee, our transportation consultant from Bunt and Associates. I just want to note that we will not be presenting on the project, but we are here to answer any questions that Mayor and Council may have directed at the applicant. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I'm just going to turn on my panel here. And so Council, you now have an opportunity to ask questions to staff or the applicant, and this will be your only chance to ask the applicant questions directly. So Councillor Wiebe, you have up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, recognizing the low amount of renter relocation need in this project, can you determine how only 20% of affordable housing was determined as a CAC? And what form did we use to calculate the pro forma? Was it sales comparison, capital assets, income approach? Which way do we utilize to calculate the CACs for determination that 20% was the amount that this project could deliver to the public?
Probably the staff on that one.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor. My colleague in housing, Emily Brooker, will respond to that.
Great, thanks.
Sorry, my colleague Sarah Sutton in Real Estate Services will respond.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Hi there.
Hi there.
Yeah, so Sarah Sutton from Real Estate Services. I was the one that undertook the pro forma review for this project. So in line with our CAC policy and procedures, this project was subject to a CAC review. It is a rental project, but I still go through the pro forma review process. And the applicant's proposal, which was in line with the interim policy of 20%, was what I reviewed, and there was no additional land lift beyond that 20% that they've provided. So assuming the rents that Carly went through earlier, so those discounted to CMHC rents.
So what, so in that CAC review, what review system did you use for pro forma? And what was the cap rate that you were hoping that this project would deliver?
So for rental projects, we use the income capitalization approach within the pro forma. So we look at the total revenues, which is basically taking the rental stream for the life of the building, capitalizing it to get to a value at today. And we then look at the construction cost of building it. That will give us the rezoned land value of the project. And we then look at the value of the land under existing zoning. And we check if there's any land lift between those two. But any land lift that would have been generated in this case was already absorbed by those 20% below market rental units.
Okay, because I noticed the policy says a minimum 20%, and so the goal is that hopefully on projects like this, close to 13 FSR, we could get more than 20%, but in your valuation, there was not an ability to raise that to 21, 22, or 23%.
That's correct, yeah. After we get the third-party cost reports in and I do my own analysis on revenues, 20% was where we landed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have Councillor Swanson next, up to 5 minutes. Go ahead, Councillor Swanson.
Yeah, so usually we deal with individual projects. Are we dealing with these two together?
Thank you, Councillor. No, these are two separate rezoning applications, which will be dealt with separately. They have each have their own CD1 bylaw.
Okay. Question for the applicant. Are they going to be pet friendly?
The applicant team?
This is Jeff Skinner. Councillor Swanson, yes, they will be.
Okay, question for staff. I like the idea of 70% of the below markets 70% at 20% below market and 30% at 50%. That sounds good. But then you said if somebody moves out, the rent gets reset to the CMHC average market rent. So does that mean that that we lose the low-income units?
Thank you, Councillor. My colleague in housing, Emily Brooker, will respond to that question.
Hi, Emily Brooker, Housing Policy and Regulation. That's a clarification here. We can clarify that the below market units would reset on turnover to the same discount to CMHC average market rent that was set at initial occupancy. So a unit that was set at a 50% discount to CMHC would reset to a 50% discount again on turnover.
Okay, and would there be income restrictions for moving into those units?
Yes, tenants would need to be eligible to have one of those units. Yeah, so no more than 30% of income spent on rent.
Okay, so I guess that's, why were only 2 of the 48 units tenanted? Why didn't the other tenants stay longer?
It's staff or the applicant there,
I
Councillor
guess
Swanson?
that would be the applicant.
Okay, so the applicant.
Councillor Swanson, it's Jeff Skinner. When we purchased the properties and we intended to redevelop, we submitted an application and we created a TRP, tenant relocation plan with city staff, and communicated to the applicants that we would be redeveloping the site. And some of the applicants did leave and took the option to move out with the tenant relocation plan assistance. And we didn't re-tenant some of those units because we felt like we were going to move forward with the application at the time and be in a position where we had to demolish the units, so we didn't want to re-tenant them and then have to move more people out afterwards.
Do you have an idea of what the average rents were?
I do not have the existing or the original average rents with me, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carr, you have up to 5.
I just have one question. Thank you, Mayor, on top of the other ones that have been asked, and that is about one of the conditions of approval, which requires a 75% recycling of demolition. I'm wondering if the applicant can explain what elements are going to be subject to the green demolition and reuse, for example.
Jeff Skinner again. I can answer that. So we have a pretty extensive recycling program through all of our construction sites. We won't be reusing any of the materials in the new construction, but we divert from the landfill following LEED standards that we've been doing on many of our sites for many years now.
And where do the materials go when they are diverted?
To recycling depots and centers that have aftermarkets that use those materials.
And what's left over? What's the 25% that you just can't find? So if you are diverting 75%, what happens to the other 25%? What are those kinds of materials that are very difficult to know what to do with? So they end up as like real waste.
That's a very good question. I don't have an answer off the top of my head, unfortunately. I'm not sure which materials we're not able to divert, but we do divert. We will be able to divert 75% or more.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor. So that's it for questions. We can go to our list now from the public, and let's see. The first speaker we have on the list is have Jonathan Lim.
Speaker 1 is not on the line, Mayor.
Thank you, Clerk. We have speaker number 2, Sylvia Grace Borda.
Hello, can you hear me?
Sure can. You have up to 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Oh, wonderful. Hi, I'm an owner and an artist that has used my apartment 1100 Hardwood for over 27 years, and I have urgent concerns about the type of light values that are going to be available. And this means direct natural light. So when you look at these buildings at 30 stories or 300 feet, they're already double the height of the existing building at 1100 Harwood, which is known as the Martinique. It's a 12-story building. And when these two buildings go up that are perpendicular and sort of across the corridor from this other building, they'll create a natural curtain wall. And what I mean by this is that if you use a sun calculator, I forwarded notes to City Council, hopefully you have those.
Speaker, I was just going to stop you there. I was just going to stop you there. Did you want us to see the presentation that you've submitted? If so, the clerks can pull it up on screen.
Yes, it would be helpful to have those notes present. It's a bit strange because I'm literally without any visuals to see yourselves or to see screen, so I'll talk through, but certainly those notes should have been presented. I understood from City Clerk 10 minutes prior to the meeting.
Yes, and we it looks like we do have them up now, so if you want to continue to talk, if you want us to flip a page or something, just let us know.
So what happens in these notes is that at present, the two low-rise buildings that are present that have been there for over 50 years allow light, particularly as we hit the summer equinox today. I have light from 5:40 a.m. to 11:15 a.m., so it's 5.5 hours. With the new buildings that go up, the sun calculator shows that between shadowing and the height of the buildings, I'll be reduced to 1 hour and 35 minutes or 1 hour and 45 minutes maximum light. 25 minutes, which will come around 11 o'clock. So going from 5.5 hours to less than 2 hours is a substantial and drastic reduction of immediate light that can come into my building and to other residents. And that type of dark shadow that is cast by this building will be approximately 60 meters. So that 60 meters will mean that the building will be continuously enveloped in shadow, particularly for the north side facing units. And these are units that are owned by artists, by disabled people, by the elderly, people who use their unit pretty well 24/7 as their home. So having this reduction of light by 70% in their home is really quite unacceptable. I appreciate that there is going to be homes that are going to be built at low cost, and it will be rental, which is drastically needed. But it has to be understood that this building is also going to enter an ecosystem. And the ecosystem for low rises that are adjacent to new builds can be quite harmful. That reduction of light is tremendous. And I would hope that council would see that direct sunlight is a fundamental human right, that by reducing it by 70% is far excessive than what one would anticipate. And that type of shadowing that comes present will also damage the type of quality of life that is possible. There are things like the WELL standard, which is a building standard that's international that looks at the lack of light impacting mood, cognition, can lead to depression and other health issues, particularly cardiac. And so already this building is being disadvantaged. And so I feel that the report that's being put forward by city zoning and by the applicants themselves has forgot to look at the wider ecosystem of other residents that have been long-term there. And that's made this neighborhood livable. So that's one particular thing that's of real distress. The other thing is when a building goes up of this significant height, the amount of light that can penetrate into the apartment gets greatly reduced. So at present, light can go all the way by 5.5 meters to the back of the apartment. With the new dwelling up and with the reduction of direct light and sort of shadow light, 1 meter will be all that will be able to penetrate the apartment. And so why is this important? Citizens have the right to light and access to natural light. And this exists, for instance, in UK or English law. There is a right to have to access light. And so any resident in the UK that has been present or their building has been there for over 20 years can ask developers and the city to halt the development, to ask for review, to ask for building redesign, or to be compensated. And this is particularly why London, Manchester, Liverpool, those amazing cantilevered buildings, because they're designed to follow the light corridor, to actually allow light to penetrate around these buildings. So at present, the two large developments are basically upright shoeboxes. There is no way for light to pass through them, and that light also gets significantly reduced at the winter equinox. There will be no direct light that will be available. The building will basically on the north side face indefinite shadow until it sort of works towards spring and summer. So what's happened in Canada in terms of rights to access to light and legislation? Well, there have been challenges, and two have come in Ontario. One, the City of Toronto and the City of Toronto School Board actually took to court building developers who proposed a 38-story building after they did a full analysis, realizing that the shadow of the building that they themselves had approved was going to cast a shadow that was going to impact a local school, and 200 school children would be in the same position as my own residential building, which in its entirety has between 150 and 200 residents. So the City of Toronto attempted to sue the developer on that. That was in 2016. In 2017, community gardeners at the Alex Wilson Community Gardens actually sued the City of Toronto for proposing a building that was beyond 8 stories in a low-rise area that was going to reduce light available to their community garden and would kill plants. So these were full sun plants and partial sun.
You're 5 minutes.
Okay, I will just conclude with this. I'm asking the City of Vancouver to look very carefully to the idea of duty of care, that the lack of light is very detrimental to the health of residents, that this can lead to class action by residents in the future because the duty of care hasn't been put together by the city. And thirdly, and critically,
you're well over your time. I am going to have to stop you there.
I am representing other residents other than myself. Not many people can talk about the art.
You do have to say that at the beginning, and those folks have to be with you, at least 2 of them. So, so I'm just going to thank you for your presentation this evening.
Can I send in comments? Mayor, may I send in comments? May I please send in comments?
Send in comments to us. Yeah, absolutely. We do have the presentation that you've given us this evening. It's been on our screen all the way through, but clerks have also received that, and we'll have them make sure they send that around to us.
Can I have just one final point? And I would like to say on this
you are over your time, and I am going to move to the next speaker. So thank you so much for your presentation this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Council, the next speaker on the list is Parveen Kataria, speaker number 3. Parveen Kataria.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi, thanks. Up to 5 minutes, please.
I actually am going to request, can I be added to later on the speakers list? I'm on a very loud bus right now, and I'll be off of it in
I do call,
at
the end of the speakers list, I do call for anybody who'd like to speak. So if you wanted to come back on, it's a little bit of a risk, but you're welcome to do that if you like.
Okay, actually, so why don't I just speak up right now, and I'll put you on speakerphone. Apologies in advance
okay.
for the transit. I'll just have my notes ready. So I just want to say that I'm actually support of this rental building conditionally. So theoretically, these tenants are protected, but as I've personally experienced, tenants aren't always protected by the city's tenant relocation protection policy. So I'm a former tenant at 1345 Davie Street, which was one of the first buildings impacted by the tenant assistance policy, and I expected to be offered the right of first refusal, but I wasn't. In my case, the housing operator told city staff that I was denied a unit, and I was notified of the denial, which didn't happen. What I'm concerned about is that the same thing is going to happen to tenants at this site and at other sites. So my support is conditional on that. I do believe that we need an additional supply of rental housing, and I know that many of these buildings like these at the subject site are nearing the end of their useful life, but we genuinely need to ensure that those tenants are protected from permanent displacement from the West End. So my request is conditional in that I'm requesting that council give city staff additional resources in the form of staffing and technology to support the all-encompassing work that tenant assistance actually is. It's enough to just, and mayor and council can't trust that housing operators, whether they be nonprofit, like the one that is operating at 1345 Davie site, or private, will implement the tenant relocation protection policy as intended. Staff do need to be given adequate resources to enforce these policies, and the policies are only as good as the enforcement capacity that staff have. So far, I've seen that the staff don't have adequate resources to do the work that they should be able to do, and people like me are permanently displaced from the neighborhoods that we call home as a result. So that's my piece on the tenant relocation protection policy. It's, it's only good in paper. It actually has to be enforced, and I hope that you'll consider that as part of the work that you do on this rezoning and others. The other consideration is that I'm concerned about the deterioration of this building. As your staff are probably aware, as they work in the area of rental housing, rental properties, interestingly enough, deteriorate at faster rates than stratified properties. Probably because strata properties are required by law to build up reserve funds to deal with repairs. And so what I am also requesting is that through its various mechanisms that it has available to it, that the city consider some kind of mechanism that would ensure that these buildings will not deteriorate at the rate that we see rental buildings traditionally deteriorate, whether that be requiring some kind of reserve fund or advocacy to the province, et cetera. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm done.
Okay, thanks very much for your, it sounds like acrobatic work to participate tonight. You do have questions from Councillor Swanson, though.
Yeah, I wonder if you could tell us about your own situation of being, I guess, evicted. Like, did you get a good place? Did you get adequate compensation? Are you going to go do a right of first refusal? How is that working out?
Here's the thing. I'm fortunate that I found a place. Just so you are aware, I used to work at Track Tenant Resource and Advisory Center. I'm very familiar with rental housing and the laws, and I also am the person who worked on developing and implementing the City of Burnaby's tenant assistance policy. So this is an area that I am, I would say, arguably one of the region's experts in. So I'm fortunate that I know the housing market, and I did find a decent place. My concern is the neighborhood. So now I live at pretty much what's the Chinatown Gate, and I've been attacked in my neighborhood by a stranger, and a City of Vancouver employee intervened. So while technically, yes, I do have housing, yes, it's nice housing, the neighborhood is not ideal. If anybody wants to tell me that, the downtown east side is anything like the West End, they are out of their minds. So I am so disappointed. What it feels like I've been permanently displaced from the neighborhood that I had called home for so many years. My doctor is still in that neighborhood. I still have friends in that neighborhood. As you can imagine, as you've probably seen, in the West End, there's a larger tree canopy. We don't have the same trees in the downtown east side. We don't have boulevards with grass. And so it is nothing like the West End. So yes, I'm grateful that I have housing. I know that so many in the city don't have access to housing, but I'm talking about permanent displacement from neighborhoods and communities in this situation.
So I think the TRP says that you should be offered a place in your neighborhood, but did that happen for you?
I didn't need the assistance of the I didn't need the assistance of their tenant relocation specialists, as I was able to find housing myself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time tonight. Actually, I'd be quite interested in your experience with the landlord or the from your former building not offering you the full TRP treatment. If you would contact my office, I would be most grateful to get
Absolutely. Your staff can give you information, and also, just so you know, it's a nonprofit housing provider in this case.
Yeah, great.
So,
I'd love to get more details.
Okay, perfect. I'll reach out.
Okay, thanks very much. You do have a question from Councillor Nova.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. also would be interested in having that information if you wouldn't mind sharing it with all of council. But also, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely, it's fine.
Fantastic, thanks. And I'm just wondering, I wanted to clarify, what I heard you say was you didn't require the help of the tenant relocation specialist.
Sorry, can you say that again? I'm on transit and you're cutting out.
Sorry,
It's
I'll try and
a
talk
bad
louder.
choice.
So you said before you didn't require the assistance of the tenant relocation specialist in this case, but was that offered to you as an option?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course.
Just wanted to make sure I clarified that. Thank you so much for twisting yourself into a pretzel to make sure you can speak to us tonight. Really, really appreciate your perspective.
Thank you. That's it for questions. So really thank you for calling in tonight. And we're going to move to the next speaker. We have Jonathan Bridge Hudson, speaker number 4.
Hello.
Hi there. You have up to 5 minutes whenever you're ready. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. Just wanted to say first off, thanks for the opportunity to comment and speak today. I'm a West End resident, and I'd like to just offer my support. I'm in support of the project. I'm a nearby resident. I've been a renter in the area for 4 years. I moved to Vancouver 5 years ago from Hong Kong, and I've been quite shocked at how hard it is to find affordable rentals, and definitely the locations, or being able to find affordable rentals downtown in the West End, etc. And so I think seeing more of these rental specific buildings, and especially with the rent controlled, or sorry, that's the wrong term, but the provision for lower income people to also have below market rentals, I think is definitely what Vancouver needs, and definitely what the area needs as well. And so I think I read through the application. Being a neighbor, I walk past the building every single day, so I've seen the zoning reapplication sign for several years, and I just think I sympathize with the first caller about the light, and I think that's something to be considerate of. But I think we need to move forward to be able to house the population that we have, and then to be able to house the people who will be moving to the city as well. So I believe I think that's all my thoughts and my comments today.
Great. Thank you so much. I don't see any questions for you. I just want to thank you so much for calling in tonight. And I'm going to move to the next speaker, who's speaker number 5, Reverend Dale Wood.
Yes. Hi. Good evening, Mayor Stewart and members of the council.
Hi, can I just ask you if you're a resident of Vancouver? That's just a requirement. It doesn't mean you can't speak if you're not. Just, are you a resident of Vancouver?
I am not. I work in Vancouver, but I'm not actually a resident there.
That's cool. Thanks. Please go ahead. Up to 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay, fine. So I'm from Central Presbyterian Church, which is 1155 Furlough, which is just 2 blocks north of this site on the West End. And our experience with BOSA in our congregation, I would speak in favor of the application. Our association with BOSA Properties came about in a partnership between our congregation and BOSA to redevelop our own church property in 2013. And I think it's fair to say that a big part of that redevelopment was our own commitment to below market rental housing. I wasn't part of the church team that worked with BOSA because I've only recently moved back to Vancouver from Montreal. But I know that those from our congregation who worked with BOSA spoke highly of their work, their professionalism, and their larger commitment to the city of Vancouver. Our partnership with BOSA resulted in a more modern church built, which we own, along with another 45 below market rental homes, which were delivered to us turnkey by BOSA. Our new facility has allowed us to create several new partnerships with other ministries that are interested in the well-being of the broader community. And in exchange, BOSA built another 168 market rental homes. what we can testify to firsthand was the professionalism and the quality of the BOSA properties, but also for us, the relief and delight the new homes brought to the new residents that we have. My understanding is that those in the BOSA market rental homes have seen little turnover since their occupancy, but I do know there's always a waiting list for people looking for a place in the non-market CPC homes connected to our congregation. I'm not a builder, so I don't know how the whole process works, but I am a pastor, and I know the importance of people having a place they can afford, as well as having the opportunity to be part of a larger community, which is something that we work on in the CPC housing. And I also know that having a project managed professionally and building a product as quality matters, and we were aware of both of those elements in our partnership with BOSA. So we're supportive of these kind of building projects and the long-term goals that they are seeking to achieve, because we believe they address the multiple needs of housing in our city. So thank you. I hope it will be supported.
Thank you so much for coming in this evening or presenting this evening. I'm just checking here. I don't see any questions for you, Reverend. So I'm going to move on to the next speaker. But thanks again, though.
Thank you.
Speaker number 6 is Madison Desbiens.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Hi.
Up to 5 minutes, please.
Hi, so my name is Maddie Desbiens. Hello to the mayor and council. I'm a resident of the West End, and I'm calling in to show my support of this proposal to build the rental housing at the corner of Harwood and Furlough. So my comments, I guess, will apply to both of the rental housing applications. So first of all, I guess I'd like to comment on the neighborhood. I actually live just up the road from these developments that are being proposed. And I chose to make the West End my home because it's very, it's a neighborly feel. I'm very close to restaurants and I can live car free. This is a major bonus for me because my work is just up the street. My doctor's office, dentist, gym, and pharmacy are all close by. So I feel like I get the city amenities, but still have that homey feel of the West End. I really love the proximity to the beach and the seawall as well. And I just feel like it's a beautiful part of the city to call home. But unfortunately, it was very, very difficult for me to find suitable housing in this area. A lot of the buildings are older and don't become available very often. So finding decent, newer housing in the area is just not easy. And the best units seem to pop up and then move very quickly. So it speaks to the demand for housing here. Hearing that these developments are going to be pet friendly as well is a huge bonus for me because I have the most adorable puppy, but finding her a pet friendly unit has been such a challenge. I was really lucky to get into the place that I did find. So, I mean, for me personally, I really appreciate the opportunity for more individuals to get to enjoy housing in this area that I'm so blessed to call home. And I think, walking my dog down the street and looking around, I can definitely see that the West End is in need of some revitalization, especially those particular buildings. So, and we are starting to see some of the benefits that come along with new developments in this area. So I would say I'm definitely in strong support of the proposal. And the thought of having some new market and also below market especially homes in this area is exciting to me. And I think it will be a welcome addition to this community. So yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. So I really appreciate the opportunity to comment this evening. Thanks.
Thanks for your time tonight. I don't see any questions for you, but I appreciate you calling in. And I'm going to move to the next speaker now. We have number 7, Bill McLeod.
Yes, Mayor and Council, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm a resident at 1020 Harwood Street, which is at the end of the block from the proposed new building. We've experienced here in our immediate vicinity an enormous growth of new apartment buildings, both, well, more particularly condominium towers, but the fact of the matter is that this development has come pretty much constantly, rapidly, and we're experiencing all of the shortcomings of the disruptions of construction on an ongoing basis, to the extent that we're finding the traffic is a serious problem. The dirt and the noise of construction is a serious problem. I'm all for growth. I'm all for growth with the opportunity for everybody to have proper housing. But we in our immediate neighborhood here on Harwood Street are being given an unfair share of the burdens of growth, and we don't see, to be blunt, any benefit from it. And so, for example, in the last 5 years or so, we've had a building across the street with 121 units, the modern building. Within a block, kitty corner, the 1 Burrard Place is 394 units. 2 Burrard Place, which is going to go up, is another 206 units. And this project is 288 units. And across the street, perhaps, or 279, I don't want to misstate things. And across the street, perhaps another one coming. Now, we don't have yet the full impact of these Burrard Place units coming on stream in terms of the burdens of traffic and occupancy. Those units are just getting sold, and with the speed of the growth that we're experiencing, we don't think that the current, what we're experiencing today is what it's going to be like in a couple of years or in the next 5 years, let's say. All we see is growth, more and more of the burden of high-rise apartments being put into our immediate neighborhood, and the growth not being spread equitably across the city. At least that's how it seems to us. So the technicalities of this proposal are beyond my ability to comment, but I can say as a 15-year resident and someone who has seen an awful lot of change in the last 5 years, that we would prefer to see the city spread out the burden of social housing more equitably across the city, and not impose it all in our immediate neighborhood, because we've done our share already. Those are my comments.
Thanks very much. You do have a question from Councillor Carr. Councillor Carr, go ahead. You're on mute, I think.
Thanks so much for coming to speak to us. You say you've been a resident in the West End for 15 years, I think you said. Were you at all involved with the West End plan, the West End planning process that happened about 10 years ago or so?
No, I didn't take part in that, I'm sorry to say.
Okay. I was just wondering, because the residents who did basically decided that, or recommended to council, that growth get concentrated along the outer edge of the West End. So along your street, basically Burrard and Furlough and the Georgia corridor, and rather than in the sort of leafy green interior of the West End. Anyway, I'm just curious if you'd had any experience with that plan, but that was sort of a decision that was really come to by the will of residents at the time in the West End. Anyway, I understand how difficult it must be when you know you're in that corridor and there is a lot of development that has been planned through the West End plan in that area. I don't have another question for you, but again, I appreciate you coming.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. I don't see any other questions for you, speaker, so I'll say thank you so much for calling in tonight and sharing your thoughts. And I'm going to move to the next speaker, who is Luanna, I think it's Bernard. Might be misspelling there. Luanna Bernard.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Stewart and members of council. My name is Luanna Bernard. I'm from Central Presbyterian Church at 1155 Furlough. It is a pleasure to address you in support of the two rezoning before you this evening by BOSA Properties. Myself and Maria Sportsman, both elders of Central Church, we would like to speak to BOSA Properties' proposal to build two residential buildings at Harwood and Furlough. We are members of and residents in the BOSA Central Presbyterian Church Tower development at Pendrell and Furlough. This property, which was first occupied in 2018, consists of BOSA's 22-story tower market apartment building plus Central Presbyterian Church. The church's 45 below market rental apartments and a commercial retail unit. Throughout the entire process, BOSA was a pleasure to work with. As affordable accommodation for seniors is difficult to find in Vancouver, we have been grateful to be residents in the below market rental apartments. As well as congenial members, we've been extremely pleased to have a cordial relationship with the building manager and his wife of the adjoining BOSA Tower. They have been very friendly, helpful, and accommodating with both common and individual issues we may have. We also are pleased to be able to share a security person with the BOSA Tower apartments. We have expressed regret that we only have 45 below market apartments with a long wait list. We are pleased that BOSA is proposing to build 110 more affordable units for low-income renters. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for your time this evening. I don't see any questions for you, so I will move on to the next speaker, who is Beverly Shipansky.
Good evening, Mayor Stewart and members of council. My name is Reverend Beverly.
Oh, just before you start, we do have a request that you'll let us know if you're a resident of the city of Vancouver or not. It doesn't matter. We just like to know.
Yes, I am a resident of the city of Vancouver. In fact, I live at the Presbyterian Church housing.
Oh, great. Okay, please go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Stewart and members of council. My name is Reverend Beverly Shipansky from Central Presbyterian Church at 1155 Furlough, just 2 blocks away from the site in the West End, which is proposing to have the bylaws changed. I am speaking in support of the 2 rezonings before you this evening by BOSA Properties. Some council members may remember that Central Presbyterian began the process for the renewal and redevelopment of our church property in 2013. BOSA Properties assisted us greatly in that endeavor. Our partnership with BOSA resulted in a new and more modern church, which we own, along with 45 below-market rental homes, which were delivered to us ready to use by BOSA. In exchange, BOSA built another 168 market rental homes adjacent. I am here today to support the 2 projects on Furlough and Harwood because I have experienced firsthand the professionalism and quality of BOSA Properties. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, I live in the non-market CP housing where there is very little turnover since occupancy. We all know the vacancy rates in the West End are very low. This development program will see a total of many new, beautiful, secured rental homes, and the best is that there will be low-income housing included. I realize that both towers are replacing older rental buildings, and while this is often very disruptive for those who previously occupied these homes, these new towers will welcome tenants back to new, fully contained suites with high-quality amenities, while also providing for many families, couples, young professionals, and seniors. It is commendable, even though it's only at 20% of the housing market to be for seniors or below market rates. It is definitely a great addition to the neighborhood. I appreciate your listening to my full support for both these towers and the new homes they will be bringing to our community. Thank you, and I hope you will vote in favor of the project this evening.
Thank you so much for your time this evening. There are no questions for you, but we do thank you for your participation. Council, that is it for registered speakers. So I'm now going to call the first time for speakers who would like to speak to this item, 1-833-353-8610, 106-1445#, and clerks, anybody in the council chambers or online.
One speaker on the line, Mayor.
Great. Speaker, please go ahead. You have up to 5 minutes, and could we have your full name and whether or not you're a resident of the city of Vancouver?
Oh, hey, can you hear me? This is Thomas Jack. I live on 1021 Harwood Street.
Oh, great. Thanks very much. And yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead up to 5.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you so much that I can speak. So as I said, I live on 1021 Harwood Street. First of all, I want to say that I'm support for the new development, but with the conditions. As we were speaking, one of my biggest concerns are actually the environment. One of the big, huge impacts are the height of these buildings. I would say because on the Kitsilano area, for example, there is a bald eagle living, and he's usually like also flying around our West End area, and I'm wondering if this wouldn't be a huge impact in the wildlife for all of us. Because like these buildings, we have to actually consider that Furlough and Hardwood, it's not like downhill, it's actually uphill. So it's going to totally change the visibility, and it's going to totally change how the city going to look like. I think it's also city council needs to take note that the city going to change the look, and it's going to be a dangerous precedent. I believe the West End is changing too quickly, and I totally understand of its need to build more affordable housing, but 33 stories building will be huge impact for those living in much smaller buildings. You have to consider that the next door to 33-story building will be small 2-story or 2-floor house, and you will destroy the access to the sun for those people. Also, Harwood Street is not like other streets in West End. I believe this is on the, it's, as I said before, it's on the top of the hill, and it's going to crush the view of the mountains or ocean from any possible side, like Kitsilano, English Bay, Sunset Beach, or even part of the Yaletown. It also, I believe, like not enough sun is going to destroy our streets with the beautiful trees, alleys, lies. So we have a lot of trees here on the Harwood Street, and without enough sun, I believe those trees going to suffer. There is also a huge concern from my side that these buildings I would say like this, like simple. I live in the West End since 2017, and I had a big issue to find, for example, the family doctor for me and my partner. In the next couple of years, I know the Sean Paul Hospital will be moved also into another location, and there will be another huge development for Rezoning. So I would really like to know how the city council wants to manage this problem with enough schools or not enough medical facilities. I know that you want to help with more affordable living, but there is no way to do just Part B without fixing the problem in Part A. And like for this facility, around 1,200 people will be added to our neighborhood just thanks to this proposal. So my concern is, how do you want to explain those people who would have to travel for medical help more than an hour because of the bad traffic, or not enough, and because there's not enough medical institutions, or also how they're going to travel for the schools as the family is going to have the children's, right? Because there's not enough schools right now. And also one of my biggest concerns is about the traffic, because as I said, now it's really, really bad traffic right now on the Harwood Street and Furlough Street, which are the main connections to the Burrard Street and the Burrard Bridge. And I believe with this development, it will be much worse. Sometimes it's going to take like more than 15 to 20 minutes to just get out of the Harwood Street or to get on the Pacific Street and get onto the bridge. So that's also one of my biggest concerns. So I will just simplify. I'm for to develop the new housing, but as a not like in 33 stories, because I believe that's too much. And
okay, thank you.
Like,
You're at your 5 minutes.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
thank
I
you
would
so
just finish. I think it would make more sense to just develop something like in a 20-story buildings, not in 33. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, there are no questions for you, so thank you. I'm going to make my second call now for speakers and just check with the clerks. Is there anybody on the line or in person?
Yes, hello.
Oh, hi there.
One additional speaker on the line, Mayor.
Thanks. Speaker, could you just let us know your first and last name and whether or not you're a resident of Vancouver?
Hi, my name is Alana Bernard. I am a resident of Vancouver. I'm actually one of the 2 residents left at this site, along with my mom and my dad, who I'm speaking on behalf of. So I don't have much to say, as I just saw that this is occurring right now, but I wrote something up really quickly. My family are the last remaining tenants at 1065 Harwood Street. My father is a small business owner in the West End, but recently had to close his shop due to a lung cancer diagnosis. My mom works 2 blocks away at the Marriott Residence Inn on Drake Street, and she walks to work at 5 a.m. 5 days a week. I was born at 1332, which is the site just to the right, and then we moved to 1065 19 years ago. So as much as the Reverend speaker and the community members talked about how they like walking their dogs in the area or, you know, just enjoying the West End, at the end of the day, there are tenants that are still in this building, and I feel like the applicant should put in more of an effort to address our concerns before we leave, because at the end of the day, we're paying $1,000 a month rent and 4 months of rent plus a couple hundred for additional moving costs is really, it's kind of a joke, to be honest. And we talked to the city as well as the applicant about being relocated, and they made it pretty clear that we can't really expect to be relocated somewhere else within the West End, and we need to be open to moving out of the area. Now, as the other speaker had mentioned, other parts of the city are really not that safe, with people getting attacked and I guess random acts of violence being on the rise. And my mom really doesn't feel safe walking to work at 5 in the morning, I guess from other parts of the city where low-income housing is available, such as Chinatown and the downtown east side. So I just wanted to bring our situation up to the council, and I hope you guys take this into consideration, as there are only 2 tenants left at this site, and it would mean a lot if the applicant settled with us and I guess helped accommodate our needs before moving on and I guess making housing for other people in the area. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks. You do have questions. Councillor Swanson, go ahead, up to 5 minutes. You might be on mute, Councillor Swanson.
Thanks so much for coming in to speak. Did you say that you're paying $1,000 for rent?
Yes, we are paying $995 to be exact every month for a 1-bedroom.
for the three of you.
Yes.
What
And
kind
I
of
just want to bring up sorry, go ahead.
what kind of help have you got from the landlord in terms of finding a new place?
Absolutely nothing in terms of being relocated in the West End. They made it very clear to us that if we are to be relocated, we should have no expectations of being relocated in the West End, as there are three of us, and I lived here my whole life. About to turn 20 years old, and I guess anywhere we want to move now, we looked at a few places, and no one will accept us in a one-bedroom because there are three adults now. So we'd be looking at a two-bedroom, which starts at around $3,000 in the West End. So that's our
Have you looked in
situation.
other places? Did you find
Like
anything?
I said, my mom. Yeah, so like I said, my mom, she has worked at her hotel for 10 years, and she really can't commute when her shift starts at 5 in the morning. As well, my dad closed his shop due to a recent lung cancer diagnosis, so commuting would be really tough, as I guess I have to drive him every day for radiation and chemo for 8 weeks. And he has to follow up in the future as well due to his condition. And taking the bus isn't really feasible as his immune system's compromised, especially during this time of COVID.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. I'm going to ask staff some questions about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaker, you do have other questions. Councillor Kirby-Young, go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thank you to the speaker for sharing your story and experience and the challenges you're going through. I'm wondering if you have been in touch with the City of Vancouver's Renters Office at all to see what guidance or support they could offer you. Is that something that you had looked at?
Yeah. So like I said, I did email, I'd say, I think around in October. We sent an email to the city, to the rezoning planner. Our response was to fill out an application, but they said they made it pretty clear to us before we even filled out, I think it was a survey, off the top of my head, it was like an online form or something. They made it clear, they were like, basically on the phone, you should have no expectations of being relocated in the West End, because my dad was very persistent on being relocated in the West End.
Okay, just to clarify that, like you were advised that by city staff or by the applicant that is bringing this new building forward? I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, so we were advised by the applicant when it was Blue Sky Properties a few years ago, during the original application before they changed it to the brown-looking building. It was Blue Sky Properties. They said you're going to be looking at moving somewhere in Coquitlam for a price of around $1,000. That was also when I was still a minor, so it was just a family with a child. And I was notified by the city, or my dad was notified by the city, I believe around November or December.
Okay.
I don't know who it was. There was two people we emailed. It was a rezoning planner, and there were two ladies. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm not too prepared. I just found out from my dad that this was going down like 10 minutes ago.
If you would like, if you are able to and you want to email mayor and council, we can make sure that you're in touch with the right individuals to see if make sure there's any.
Perfect, yeah, but
that
for
haven't been
sure, I
provided.
know it
We'd be
was
happy
one
to
of
do
them
that.
was a rezoning plan. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you want to do that, that would be great. Thank you very much for speaking.
Councillor Dejanova, up to 5 minutes. Questions?
Thanks so much. I appreciate you making the time to speak to council tonight. I was just wondering, can you share with us what your family was able to sort of, what the options that were given to you of specific units by the tenant relocation specialists were? I mean, were there a range of options that you had mentioned when, with the previous application, that there was an option in Coquitlam, but were there options that were put together for you by the tenant relocation specialist?
So we basically had they brought in a lady, and she came to us. She said, she sat down at our dining table. she told us she'll help us find a place from Blue Sky Properties at the time. And like I said, she said you're going to have to look at relocating somewhere in Coquitlam. They said they'd give us, I believe it was a couple hundred or maybe $1,000 for moving costs to cover like a truck. And then it was up to 1 year rent compensation at the time, or 12 months. But like I said, it's $1,000 a month that we pay. So 12,000 really isn't that much in helping to pay a $3,000 difference in rent. And at the time also, they said we either had to accept the offer of them finding us a new place, which was that lady who suggested we move to Coquitlam, or it was taking that money without the help for relocating. And I believe that was in 2018 or 2017 when the original plan was made.
And can I ask, have you since, with this application, received other options of another tenant relocation specialist coming to meet with you and your family?
We met with the caretaker of the building, as well as a fellow named Tyler Davies from Blue Sky Properties. We had a meeting in the two buildings across the street, which are also meant to be taken down, I guess, the second building in this Twin Tower project. And they basically sat us down, had a meeting. We never heard anything back from them, as the negotiator that they were using to contact us has switched. I have the letter right here, actually. They basically...
So you haven't been offered anything from the new tenant relocation specialist?
No, it switched from Blue Sky Properties to Somerville Community Relations as, I guess, a middleman in communicating with us and the applicant about offering us something, but we have not heard anything from the new, I guess, agency they hired, or community relation.
I'll follow up with questions to staff on that specifically, just to see if that meets our policies and guidelines. But thank you for sharing sharing this information with us. And I too would be interested in you emailing any additional information on what you were given by the city to Mayor and Council if possible. Thank you.
I will do. Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling in tonight. That's it for questions for you, but really appreciate you calling in tonight and sharing your perspective, and very best wishes to your family, especially your dad who's not doing so well. So thank you so much for calling in tonight. Okay, Council, I'm going to make my third and final call for speakers. We're going to take 5 minutes at 7:25, so we'll come back at 7:30 and finish this item. Thank you. clerks, I believe we
The
have
last digits.
we have Brendan Carrier on the line. Is that and we have Brendan Carrier. Hi there. Just you have up to 5 minutes and just want to know before you start if you're a resident of Vancouver. Hello?
I'm addressing the council right now.
You are? Yep. This.
Okay, great. Yeah, there was a bit of a break, so I wasn't sure if I'd be addressing them right now. But okay, thank you. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am in full support of the proposal. I also understand that BOSE has 2 applications before council this evening, which propose to build 2 twin rental towers at the corners of Furlough and Harwood. And so I'd ask that you apply my comments to both applications. So as a resident of the West End community, I feel like the West End is kind of its own enclave within downtown, and it has like a special character and energy. And most things can be accessed by foot, and since it's such a walkable neighborhood, it really makes the West End a great place to build new housing and expand the density. Also, as a student of occupational therapy, I believe that housing that is built with universal design standards is a positive for the neighborhood that many seniors call home. The aging low-rise buildings that currently exist at that corner currently are walk-ups, and they can't accommodate an aging population. At more than 50 years old, the buildings really they've been outgrown by the surrounding neighborhood. The city's really grown exponentially since those buildings were built, and there's a really high demand for housing, particularly housing built with universal design standards. I believe that replacing aging housing that cannot accommodate an aging population should be replaced by structures that are built for everyone. While I understand that this development will impact former tenants, this is an opportunity to expand accessibly built housing in this location, which will better serve the community in the long run. That's all I have to say on the matter. So thank you.
Thanks so much for your time tonight. I don't see any questions for you, so I'm just going to ask the clerk, is there anybody else on the line or in the chambers?
No additional speakers, Mayor. Oh, there is.
Thanks so much, clerk.
Sorry,
thanks.
Sorry, Mayor. 1 second, we're just getting somebody on the line.
Okay, thanks.
Hello, speaker with the last 4 digits 6773. You can speak now.
Hi, this is Bill McLeod again. I'm holding for the next.
Okay. We'll let motion. You. Yep, great. Thanks so much for that. Clerks, anybody else for this item?
No speakers, Mayor.
Great. Thank you very much. So with that, we will close the speakers list, and we're going to close the receipt of public comments and move to closing comments and questions and making a decision. So I'm going to ask staff, do you have any closing comments on this item?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Teen Fan, Senior Rezoning Planner. We just have one final closing comment, if you'll entertain us. We just want to say thank you very much to all the speakers that did come out and express their concerns and their support. The only closing comment staff have is really to address the comments from the previous speaker who lives on the site as a current tenant with his 2 parents. We do appreciate hearing about the challenging circumstances. When we reviewed our records, it did show there was insufficient information provided to indicate that additional assistance was required. However, we are happy to follow up and ask the applicant, BOSA, to reach out to better understand the tenant's specific needs and how to better assist them in the future. Just to remind Council that the policy also allows for a right of first refusal, allowing tenants to return to an appropriate unit at 20% below market rents based on an income test. So in this case, an alternate location is truly and very temporary. So, and I think that just concludes my final remarks. Thanks, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Over to the applicant now. Any closing comments from the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Jeff Skinner, BOSA. I'm going to ask James Todd, our tenant relocation specialist from Somerville Community Relations, to address some of the comments that were made around the TRP and just clarify our plans to continue to work with the tenants who are on site. James.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
We just wanted to give a brief summary of the engagement around all the tenancies. Somerville Community was brought on board as the tenant relocation coordinator in April of 2021, and coinciding with that to today, each tenant in all 4 buildings under both applications have had 9 touch points with us, including in many cases hour-long conversations. Due to privacy, of course, we can't comment on any specific tenancy or situation, but we are very aware of all of the situations for all of the tenants. Our next step is typically after the public hearing is a meeting with staff, and we do report and have a conversation with tenants and where that currently is. And so, you know, following the TRP and its process, its approved TRP would be our next step. And you know, often not speaking to a specific case, but if there is a special situation, we do often engage with them far earlier than the 4-month notice. We are not in active relocation on this project. No notice, formal notice has been provided for end of tenancy. And so I think, you know, we've got obviously a lot of work to do, but we just wanted to sort of clarify the touch points and just where we are with the process. And we've been working with staff and the BOZA team and all the tenants as well. Thank you.
Thanks, James. I'd like to just finalize with closing remarks, Mr. Mayor. Really just want to address the tenant relocation plan and our plans to continue working with James and his team and with staff to make sure that we're following the commitments that we made through the TRP and that we're working with the tenants and treating them fairly. Would also like to reiterate there is a right of first refusal for anyone who would like to come back and live in the completed buildings, and we'd be more than happy to have our current tenants come back and live with us afterwards. We're going to retain the building and manage the building in perpetuity, and that is definitely an option for tenants. I'd also say that we'll work with James and his team and staff to make sure that we consider any special requirements of these existing tenants as well. I'd like to thank all the speakers for their comments and for staff for their presentation tonight. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Now we have questions from council to staff at this point. So Councillor Swanson, questions to staff, 5 minutes. You might be on mute.
I'm quite concerned about the remaining tenants paying $1,000 a month, and even the below market rent, 20% below market is $1,300, and they'd need a 2-bedroom, which is almost $2,000 for the below market units. So is there any way we could get a top-up, an interim top-up for these tenants so that they can exercise a right of first refusal and then have something lower than the 20% below market?
That's the staff.
Thank you for the question. It's Annie Mobiler, Senior Housing Planner. To your question about whether or not there is a possibility for a rent top-up, I think it would be at the discretion of the applicant. It's not a requirement of the tenant relocation policy currently for the citywide policy. I know it's under consideration for a Broadway plan, but it might be in this instance just in consideration of the income test to get into that below market portion of the building, of which, you know, a portion, the portion that's 50% discount to the market CMHC average market rents is quite affordable. I would say more affordable than traditional MERP. With the 3 incomes, there might be some possibility of paying a bit more than $1,000 if they've been paying that for, you know, 20 years. There might be some possibility there, but the tenant would need to work with the landlord, in this case BOZA, to determine that. So it would be outside and over and above what the policy requirements are, but it isn't unusual to see that in what we would call special circumstances. And we've looked through our files just as the tenant speaking, and can see that they haven't filled out the survey. I mean, it is still early days on the tenant relocation plan and the process. But we will work together with BOSA and Somerville, James, who spoke on behalf of the applicant, who's providing tenant relocation support, to make sure that they articulate what their needs are through that survey, and then work together with the applicant to try to address those. So it's possible, it's not a requirement, but it is possible. Thank you.
Are there any vacancies in the West End that they could go to?
We would ask that they look, that the applicant team and the TRP specialists look in the neighborhood that's the preferred neighborhood for tenants, and we ask that of every TRP. In this case, obviously, it is the West End, and I mean, the West End, there is obviously a lot of rental in the West End. And so, I think, I can't answer that question specifically, but I would hope that there are some options available. Again, it does sound to me, and just listening to the tenant, that there are some special circumstances with regards to employment and just the situation with a family that would merit trying to find a unit in the neighborhood, and whether that's a rent top up or some additional compensation would be something that would be discussed between the applicant and the tenant. And we would work, with the applicant primarily to ensure that the TRP requirements are followed. The special circumstances often are just that, special circumstances, and unique arrangements do get made to try to support people. So that would be our focus here.
Can the city require that the applicant pay a tenant in special circumstances, say a top up in interim housing?
We can't require it under the policy that we have right now that the applicant's operating under. But I will say, in having the team that is working on implementing the TRP, that's often the case where we're working together with the applicant and the tenant to try to find a solution. And there can be gray areas, right? Sometimes it's the neighborhood, sometimes it's a rent top up, but it's not currently a requirement.
It really shows this case how inadequate the TRP is. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Councillor Bly?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, this question is just with regards to the conditions of approval and unit size. And I wonder if staff could just comment on, in the referral report, it talks about, for example, studio unit in the below market rental units, about 298 square feet. Don't quote me, I just was scanning through the report again, but it's just under 300 square feet. And in the conditions for approval, in Appendix B, it's talking about the average size of each unit type will be at or below the limit set out in the DCL bylaw. And that studio average unit size is 450 square feet. So could staff just indicate what council is going to be able to expect with this development, considering the FSR is where the FSR is landing and the deliverable units?
It's Annie Mobliss here, Senior Housing Planner. I think your question is related to the maximum average unit sizes with the DCL waiver, is that right? Or just generally the unit sizes?
Just generally.
I wonder if maybe, I'm not sure if one of the development planning staff might be able to answer that question better than housing staff. I don't know.
Thank you for the question. My colleague Kevin Spans will respond to that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. So we do not permit units of any tenure less than, and you'll have to excuse me, the number is not coming to me right now. Our general standard for minimum unit size is 398 square feet for market housing. We do allow relaxations down from that to that number that I can't off the top of my head think of for 320 square feet for units with that are either secured, like are a higher level of affordability, but we wouldn't permit a unit with a gross floor area of less than that. The condition.
Okay, I found it back here. Okay, that I found it back here at 368 square feet for the studio. So forgive me, you're right. That is above the 320 square feet. So can you just share one more time that if this development moves ahead with the DCL waiver, how that impacts or doesn't impact unit size?
Hi, Emily Brugger here, Housing Policy and Regulation. Yeah, so as the project is seeking the waiver, it will be required to meet the DCL waiver maximum average unit sizes across each unit type. So across each unit type, they'll have to fall below those maximum averages, which it's currently doing.
Okay, so if they go for the waiver, then they'll have to meet the conditional approval unit sizes, which is larger than the average unit sizes outlined in the report right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, the DCL maximum averages are larger. Yeah.
Okay, and is that in addition to a potential CAC or instead of?
The waiver is. Sorry, yes. Can you repeat your question?
Just I noted in the report that it talked about if they went with the waiver, the DCL waiver, then they'd have to submit another pro forma, and there would be a new calculation in terms of whether there is a land lift, in which case it would result in a CAC. And what I'm trying to understand is that in place of the average unit size, maximum average unit size, or as well as that condition?
The maximum average unit sizes need to be met to qualify for the waiver. The CAC, I think, is maybe a different question, and maybe somebody in real estate can speak to that.
Just 20 seconds.
Yeah, I can try. Sarah Sutton from Real Estate Services. So yeah, if they change their mind on the DCL, whether they want to take the waiver or not, then it will come back to us for pro forma review. And there may or may not be additional lift depending on what they do at that stage, but that would be further down the line.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. So it's separate is what I'm gleaning from that. Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Councillor Fry.
Yeah, thanks. I want to go back to some of the stuff around the tenant relocation policies. I was surprised to hear the young man whose father is undergoing cancer treatment saying that they were being offered possibly a place in Coquitlam. Am I correct in reading the TRP in front of me that basically says all options should be in Vancouver unless otherwise specified from the tenant as a principle of the market replacement?
Hi, Emily again. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so perhaps that was a misinformation piece or miscommunication that Coquitlam was being offered instead of Vancouver?
Yeah, we can work with the applicant to make sure that options are offered in Vancouver. Correct.
Okay. Well, that's good. Thank you then. And I think Teen had mentioned something about income testing. Now, can we just walk through what does income testing look like in the context of market housing? I know they talk about low income options, but obviously when we talk about income testing, how are we factoring in incidentals? We clearly heard from this young man that they have some sort of exceptional family circumstances that wouldn't necessarily be captured in a rent geared to income sort of scenario, because presumably there's additional expenses. The father's not working; he's undergoing cancer treatment. It's a young man who maybe not accessing like top paying jobs, and a mom who's supporting the family.
Thanks, Councillor Carr. Councillor Fry, it's Teen here, Senior Planner. I'm going to redirect that question over to Annie. She has a better sense, of course.
Thanks, Teen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fry, for the question. Annie Mobilis, Senior Housing Planner. And so I was actually thinking about that as well, and just listening to the tenants speak, because there are 3 people currently living in a 1-bedroom unit, which also might not be as good as it could be for them. And so in just thinking about the income test, what we and what standard in income testing is the gross household income. So no more than 30% spent on rent. And so in this case, it would include all three individuals who are living in the unit. There are also occupancy standards, you know, and actually the tenant mentioned that they would need a 2-bedroom unit at a minimum. And so the income test, they would need to income test to qualify into the below market units. And that's something that we look for compliance in our housing agreements. In this case, I think we're going to need to figure out, you know, what those circumstances are with the tenants, and they may well be eligible for social housing. And so there might be more work to do there with some special circumstances to try to find them a unit that's appropriate. We just don't have enough information. It's still quite early days for the tenant relocation plan process.
Okay, so just to give me that reassurance, then income testing does not necessarily take a pure percentage of the income before taxes or otherwise and not consider exceptional circumstances like a young person maybe who's going to school or a dad who's struggling with cancer.
That's right, someone on medical leave, for example. Those would be counted in the TRP under the special circumstance category. And we would look to have the applicant support the tenant. It is something that's self-declared by tenants. So at this point, it wasn't clear that that was the situation. And so I think that's the work that we'll need to do with those in Somerville.
Okay, thanks, Annie. I appreciate that.
Councillor Carr, up to 5.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, actually, all my questions but one have been asked, so I won't be that long. And that is several speakers raised the issue of the right to light. I'm wondering if staff can just inform us all of what the legal obligations are in Vancouver. I mean, I think we know that some of it has to do with school grounds and park spaces, but is there anything that legally obligates us to make sure that the right to light has been preserved in residential developments like this?
Thank you, Councillor. My colleague in development planning, Hiroko, will respond to that.
Hi, Councillor Carr, it's Teen, Senior Rezoning Planner. We'll have Kevin and Hiroko jump up, but there isn't a legal obligation, though. It's clearly laid out in the West End Plan and the West End Bulletin and the rezoning policy for access to villages between a certain time, 10 and 4 at the equinoxes. I'll let my colleague Kevin Spans expand further. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Carr. It's Kevin Spans, Senior Development Planner for the Metro Core. So generally speaking, developments are obligated to maximize solar access to public parks, public school properties, and as Teen mentioned, in some cases, high streets, important high streets, including Robson at certain times. What we heard today was some commentary about access to daylight on private properties at specific times. And while that's a major consideration for every application, we have no council approved or adopted policy that requires protection of solar access to private developments at specific times.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I thought too. I just needed to know if that was the case, and I think it's important to get that on public record. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Dejanova, you're on up to 5 minutes for questions to staff.
I didn't see anyone else on. I was happy to move adoption.
Great. Okay, thank you so much for that. And
Second, Councillor Kirby.
thank you. Sorry, guys, I just dropped my script here somewhere. Oh, darn. Sorry, I shut it down.
Well, maybe, do you want me to start speaking, Mayor? Would
Nope,
that be
I
helpful?
don't. Just give me 1 second, and oh, I delete my script. Yes, I think I accidentally deleted my script. Clerks, could you send me my script again? Sorry about that, Council. Just take me a second here.
Can we pause my timer, Mayor? Please.
There we go. Okay. Okay, council. So let's see. We have now, so it's been moved and seconded, and we're moving to debate. So if someone would like to go ahead, Councillor Deschanel, go ahead.
Thanks so much, Mayor. I'll keep my comments brief, but I want to really thank the speakers who came out to speak, to either identify challenges or issues they had, and the speakers who also spoke in support. Some noting that, while it's difficult and they might not have wanted to move, that being said, they understand that there is revitalization, more housing and more density needed in the West End. What I will say is, I waited to hear the answers to some of the questions other councillors had, especially on the situation of the young man who came to speak to us, whose family does fall under special conditions. And, I'm quite confident that with our staff and with the applicant also, honoring not only the tenant relocation, plan and our policies, but also in saying that was a situation that would be followed up. I feel confident in leading that with our staff and the applicant moving forward. Also wanted to just note that this project, although also linked to the next one on our agenda, I feel that it goes above and beyond in offering below market housing in our city that is desperately needed. And knowing that all of the checks and balances will be in place to test incomes and to make sure that those who need the deepest affordability will be getting it. I'm happy to support this, and we'll be supporting this rezoning before us. And again, just really thankful to the applicant for addressing some of those issues, our staff also, and last but definitely not least, mostly I'd like to thank the speakers who came out. So I'll leave my comments there, but I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Carr.
Yes, if I can also thank the many speakers who came out. It was a good, robust set of comments that were supplied to us, and I really appreciate that. I'm going to just speak to a couple of the other issues. I'm happy to hear my fellow councillors address a number of the affordability and housing related issues, and just echo that that there is a deeper level of affordability, which I'm happy to hear, which of the replacement units that the 55 below market units compared to the 48 that are currently there, I was really happy to see that 30% or at 50% below CMHC. So 30% of those replacement units. I think the more deeper the affordability, the better in the city. Like other things though that haven't been mentioned or talked about much that I really like. I really love the balconies, the landscaping, the green roofs. There's a lot of that, but it even goes beyond to talk about urban agriculture. The large outdoor play area, child play area, which I think is a really good addition. In the units themselves, I was very interested to see that there were no 3-bed units in the market housing, 3-bedroom units, but 6 in the below market housing. You often don't see that kind of the larger units in the lower cost housing, but it really speaks to me to the ability of families moving into those, and so things like the outdoor play area for me are really, and the urban agriculture, really important. Also the fact that this is a near zero emission building, passive house standard or equivalent, and I really, it's the first time I saw spelled out 75% of the construction will be diverted. So for those reasons, we'll be supportive.
Thank you, Councillor. That is it. So for comments from council, so we can move to a vote, I think, clerks. Councillor Dominato, Councillor Dejanova. Councillor Dominato. Here we go. That has passed unanimously. Thank you, Council. Clerk, it says in my script that you need a few minutes for changeover, but I imagine it's the same team here because it's a connected building.
Staff are okay to proceed.
Okay, great. So let's move on to item number 3 on our list, which is the rezoning on 1066 Hardwood Street. Clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence.
This is an application by Henrique Partners Architects to rezone 1066 to 1078 Harwood Street from residential district to comprehensive development district to permit the development of a 33-story residential building with 278 secured rental units, of which 20% of the floor area is secured as below market rental units. A height of 300 feet and a floor space ratio of 12.55 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation of the public hearing agenda. The following correspondence has been received since the referral to the public hearing: 8 pieces of correspondence in support and 4 pieces of correspondence in opposition. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Great. Thank you so much. We do have a number of speakers. I'm just going to ask staff, we have had a presentation on a very similar building. Do you think we'll learn much from seeing the presentation again, or do you think we can waive it? Carly Rosenblatt's here from the Rezoning Center.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. This next item is nearly identical to the one that you've just seen, and so if council would like to move forward, we can waive the presentation if that's what you prefer.
I am going to move ahead unless anybody objects. And just to let the speakers know, 1-833-353-8610, code 106-1445 #. And I don't hear any objections, so I'm going to go right to the applicant team then and ask if the applicant team has anything they'd like to say to this proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jeff Skinner, Bose Properties. No, we don't have any additional comments to add other than the comments that we've already provided for the first application. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so Council, do you have any questions to staff or the applicant? And this is your chance to ask questions to the applicant. Only chance on this project. Councillor Swanson, up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, I see there's 16 tenants left in this building. Is that accurate?
And this is to the applicant or the staff?
Yeah, to the applicant, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Swanson. I believe that's correct, James Todd, our tenant relocation specialist. Can you confirm?
Yes, thank you. There were 16 tenants at the time of the application. Currently, there's 14 tenants remaining.
Okay, can you confirm to us that you will ensure that they are provided with appropriate housing in the West End or the neighborhood that they want at a rent that's similar to what they're paying now in the interim until they can get the right of first refusal?
So we operate under the approved tenant relocation plan and protection policy. There are approved tenant relocation plans for the application, and we would work to do our best with working with the city, with tenants in open communication. And just anecdotally, we always say that there's not a special magic to what we do. It just takes the time that it takes to understand everyone's situation and to work through those issues to best rehouse those folks, both in the interim and or the long term. That is our commitment.
So for other buildings, not yours, you know, I've heard that landlords have done things like give people 3 Craigslist ad listings and say, well, here we met our commitment under the TRP. And what I'm seeking is some assurance that you guys are really going to meet the needs of the current tenants.
Sure. You know, we can commit to that we have gone above and beyond policies. We are active across the region. anecdotally, we have helped folks with, rent bridging. We've helped folks in social housing, relocations. We help folks in co-ops. The Ashley Mar co-op that went smoothly in the fall was one of our relocations as well. It really takes the time to sit down and meet with everyone to understand their needs and then respond respectfully and also work together to really have a positive outcome. So that is our commitment to this work. We love this work. We're very passionate about this work, and really we do want to work with the city, with tenants.
So you have done rent bridging until people can do the right of first refusal?
In other buildings, absolutely.
And is the developer into paying the amount of money that would be required to do that?
We're just at the onset of the conversation. Sorry if Jeff wanted to.
Yeah, James, I can answer that. Councillor Swanson, we would work with each individual tenant to come up with a solution that works for the tenant that meets the TRP in this case.
Okay, thanks. Will this be a pet-friendly building?
It will as well, yes, Councillor Swanson.
Okay, thanks. That's good.
Great. Okay, that's it for questions from councillors that I can see. So council, we'll now move to hearing from the public. And let's see here. First up is, we have Sylvia Gracie Borda, speaker number 1.
Speaker 1 is not on the line.
Thank you, clerks. We have Brendan Carrier.
Speaker 2 is not on the line.
Thanks. Speaker 3 is Mara Soriano.
Yes, hi.
Hi there.
Can you hear me? Hi.
We can hear you. Have up to 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Great. So good evening, Mayor Stewart and members of council. My name is Mara Soriano. I'm a resident of Vancouver Centre. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak this evening. Housing is something that I think about often, and I appreciate the chance to comment on my community. I'd like to express my support for the proposed rental building at Harwood. I've been living in downtown Vancouver for about 7 years, 2 years in the West End. My husband, our dog, and I love this neighborhood. There's so many great options for food. It's so close to the beach. We're down the street from shopping, and we've made tons of friends in our building. We run into all the same people in the neighborhood, and we take full advantage of the farmers market on Saturdays. Suffice to say, we're super well integrated into this area. And with so many great things to offer, naturally, a lot of people want to live here. But with that demand, inflation, skyrocketing housing prices, the rental market has gotten insanely competitive. No one wants to move out of their current rentals because they would probably end up paying a lot more for a lot less space, which is what people who get rent evicted from condos end up doing. Older residents as well are already really well settled into their apartments, so they're really reluctant to move out, and turnover rates from existing rentals aren't very high. So I think Vancouver absolutely needs more rental housing. We need places to live that won't have their residents in fear of getting kicked out with only a couple months' notice, and they need to be affordable. As we all know, Vancouver is a high cost of living city, and people are struggling to make ends meet. We need more housing in the market to increase supply and hopefully create a downward pressure on pricing. I've been a Boza resident for 2 years, and I absolutely love the community was built up. I've never actually lived in a building where I knew my neighbors' names, and I do here. It's really awesome because all our dogs hang out and play together. So having more pet-friendly options is great as well because pets provide great companionship, and it's really hard to find rentals that allow that. So I think that another building, such as the proposed development on Harwood, would be a great addition to the West End. It's super close to public transit, there's tons of schools and parks nearby, and it would help bring in more customers to small business owners all around the West End. I hope you consider this proposal and that it gets approved. It's a really great place to live, and people should get to see this side of Vancouver a lot more. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. I don't see any questions for you, so I am going to move to the next speaker. Thanks for calling in. We have Parveen Kataria.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thanks. Please go ahead. Up to 5.
I spoke
I spoke to the last item, and so I hope that those comments can be carried over. But I have some additional comments to make. So one of course, my approval is conditional on council providing their staff adequate resources to support implementation of the tenant relocation protection policy. But there's some comments that I'm going to make. Apologies if none of this is going to be in order. What I'm hearing right now from staff on the previous item and then this item is that staff seem to be concerned about the tenant assistance policy. And there's been comments about bridging tenants over until they are offered the right of first refusal. The thing is, though, that tenant assistance policy is under council's control, and I think it would be incredibly unfair if we asked this developer to do more than what the policy and its guidelines require. Developers form their financial projections based on what their expectations are with the policies that are in place at that time, and for them to suddenly be asked to perhaps provide bridging for some tenants puts them in a difficult position that isn't always easy to plan for. The other thing to note is that a tenant might not actually qualify for a below market replacement rental unit at the end, and that below market rate might not be at their current rental rate. It's actually quite likely that that below market rental unit is going to be higher than their current rental rate, particularly if they're paying $1,000 for a one-bedroom unit. And so what I would ask is, if council wants the development community to be doing these types of things, they're going to have to amend their tenant relocation and protection policy. The next item is in their closing comments that would apply to this, is that staff said that relocation is truly temporary, but the thing is, as I alluded to earlier, which I did mention, the right of first refusal isn't actually guaranteed if it's not followed through. And it's interesting enough, having worked with this particular tenant relocation company, I have more faith in this company than I've had in some of the nonprofit housing providers in offering the right of first refusal. I think that we really need to ensure that your staff are given the adequate resources to support, to monitor, to ensure enforcement of the tenant protection policies, because right now it seems like either they're understaffed or something is going on that they just don't have the capacity and are just taking the nonprofit housing provider, the developer's word for it, that things have been done when they haven't been. So what I am hoping that you will do when you consider this application and others is enforcement of your tenant relocation protection policy and how you can support your employees to ensure that the right of first refusal will actually be provided at the end of this. As I've personally experienced, it was not offered. And I will qualify. I currently have a chronic health condition that I'm managing. I'll be a student for the next 3 years. Going to be pretty poor for a while with a huge amount of debt at the end of it. So I'm pretty sure I would qualify. But when somebody like me is not offered the right of first refusal, who's very knowledgeable about tenant assistance policies, I really worry for those that don't know who to follow up with, who aren't as experienced with these systems, and ensuring that the things that they're entitled to are actually provided. And that's all.
Thank you so much for your time tonight and your sharing your wisdom. There are no questions for you, so I am going to move to the next speaker. Thank you. Okay, Council, we're on to Zachary Johnson as our last registered speaker, number 5. Clerks, do we have Zachary Johnson on the line?
Yes, they should be.
Yeah, this is him.
Oh, hi, Zachary Johnson. You up to 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Yeah, no, it'll be quick. I was just calling in support of the development here at Furlough and Harwood. It's the kind of density we need in the neighborhood. 550 units is, you know, just a good number that we should be targeting for that kind of thing. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, thanks. I don't see any questions for you. I appreciate you calling in. And what I'm going to do now, Council, is take the first speakers. 1-833-353-8610, 106-445 # is the number to call if you're interested in speaking to this item. And I'm just seeing from the clerks that we do have some speakers on the line. We have the first speaker, Grace. Grace, if you could let us know your last name as well as whether or not you're a resident of Vancouver, and then take up to 5 minutes to speak to us.
Hi, I'm happy to provide that information to the clerk, but because of some security and privacy concerns that I've outlined to the clerk, I'm unwilling to give my last name at this time, and I was told that would be okay. I'm very happy to follow up offline in regards to that. I do live in Vancouver, and I do live in the neighborhood. In fact, I live on Harwood Street. My broad comment, and I will try to divide this as efficiently as possible into two sections, is, but my broad comment is I would ask you, given that you've already approved the other building, to please take some more time and refer this particular project back to staff. I had wanted to speak to the first one, but I couldn't, number two, but I couldn't get on the line. The comments were closed, and you went to a vote without my being able to speak to that. Let me at least speak to this one. I really want to ask council whether they feel that this is the best that can be done in this neighborhood in terms of inclusive social housing. The initial application included from this developer included inclusive social housing going back several years. It's not there now. I live in the West End. I walk in the West End. I run in the West End. I shop and I live here. And this area really is a place that is home to a great deal of very vulnerable people at a time when we are dealing with the height of the mental health crisis coming out of the impacts of the pandemic, the opioid crisis, the housing crisis. I see the street community all the time. We are just up the street from St. Paul's Hospital with the outpatient program around addiction. There is tons of inclusive social housing in and around the Dr. Peters Center and other areas where people who really need that extra help just getting on the road to stable housing are finding it. And this neighborhood is really welcoming of that. So yes, below market, 50% below market rent is great, but these buildings are going to command really high market rent because they're in a beautiful place, they're new buildings, and average rent is already topping out at more than $3,000 a month just for basic average rent. So are we helping the people who need the help the most? And so I know I'm on a time limit. I'll just leave that there. But I really don't think that these projects address the people who deserve to be able to live in a nice neighborhood and for whom that extra help is not there and is not met by a lack of inclusive social housing. Also, I live here, and I'm really worried about, and we've had no information from the developer or from the city except for kind of trust us, it'll be okay on traffic ingress and egress. There are a lot of seniors on our block, people who rely on their vehicles. You cannot actually turn left into Jung Lane, which will be impacted by construction, or Maxine Lane up from Burrard Street heading north. How are these people supposed to get into their lanes to get to their homes? The only way to turn if you're turning right or south onto Burrard Street is then to go across the Burrard Bridge, of course, because Pacific, you can't turn right onto Pacific. We've had absolutely no information, no communication as regards to how people with mobility issues are going to manage, because we know that not everyone can get around on foot or on a bicycle, and sometimes you need your car. So I'm mindful of time, but I just am worried about traffic. I'm really disappointed there isn't inclusive social housing, and I would ask council to go back and ask if this is the best they can do for this neighborhood, which is always celebrated being a mixed neighborhood, home to all income levels and all walks of life, including walks of life that need that extra support.
Thank you for your time. I don't see any questions for you. Clerks, I'm going to make our second call for speakers, and I see that we have speaker 5 is on the line. Let me just check here. Speaker 5 is Zachary Johnson. I think we heard from Zachary Johnson already. Zachary Johnson, are you back on the line? I guess not. Clerks, do we have anybody else?
Sorry, Mayor. Yes, Speaker 5 spoke already. Just Bill McLeod.
Bill McLeod.
New speaker.
Bill McLeod? Yeah, great. Bill McLeod, we have you for up to 5 minutes.
Sorry, Bill's hung up now.
Okay, great. Thanks. So I'm going to make our third call for speakers, and we're going to take 5 minutes. It's 8:21. We'll come back at 8:26 to conclude this item. Thanks, Speaker. Thanks, Council. See you in 5 minutes.
One additional speaker on the line, Mayor.
Great, thanks so much. Speaker, please go ahead. Just let us know your name and whether or not you're a resident of Vancouver, and we can go ahead.
Hi, it's Alana Kelly, and yes, I'm a resident in Vancouver. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Okay, so I recently just moved to Vancouver, actually, and my experience with the BOSA building was incredible. I actually was moving from the island, which is a very stressful process, and they made it enjoyable. I remember Zorian, when I moved in, he had said, once you get here, all your problems will be solved, and that really stuck with me. And I found that they treat you like a family in the building, supporting each other, and they're quick to respond to any issues, big or small. I've lived in multiple cities, including Toronto, Whistler, Kelowna, Victoria, and now Vancouver, and I feel that the BOSA organization is by far the best apartment I've lived in. They care about the people, the community, and the impact they have on society. I believe that Vancouver needs more rentals, let alone affordable ones, and in a city that is growing, it should want to attract young professionals and have sustainable housing in the core, and that I think that that is extremely important, and BOSA is a great example of a building who does this.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for that. I don't see any questions for you, so I'll just thank you for calling in tonight. Clerks, anybody else?
No additional speakers, Mayor.
Great. So we're going to close the speakers list and close public comments. And I'm going to go to staff now and ask if you have any closing comments.
Thanks very much. We do not have any closing comments at this time.
Okay. To the applicant, any closing comments from the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, we don't have any closing comments either. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Council, questions to staff. Councillor Swanson, up to 5 minutes. Go ahead. You might be muted.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, will the staff ensure that the remaining tenants get what they need? Hopefully in the West End, if that's where they want to be. Can we devote some resources to that?
Staff?
Thank you, Councillor Swanson. Housing staff will respond to that.
Hello, Emily Brooker, Housing Policy and Regulation. Yeah, we can certainly work with the applicant and Somerville to make sure that the TRP policy is properly implemented and that these remaining tenants are looked after properly. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. That's it for me.
Okay, great. Someone like to move the recommendation?
So moved. Councillor DeGenova.
Thanks. We have a second.
Councillor Boyle.
I think it's a tough one. It's a tie. I think I heard
Doesn't matter.
Boyle first, I think. So thanks very much. It's moved and seconded. Move us to debate. Anybody want to say anything about this? I don't see anybody on the list, so I'm going to move us to a vote.
Mayor, could I have a vote assist in favor, please? It's Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Yes. Please, clerks. And with that, that's unanimous. Thank you so much, Council. Clerks, we are moving on to a different building now. Do we need a few minutes for change?
Yes, please, Mayor.
Okay, Council, let's go for 8:35. Go for 5 minutes. So we'll see you in 5 minutes. Item 4, 495 West 41st. If so, we'll get the clerks to read the application.
This is an application by PCI Development Corporation to rezone 495 West 41st Avenue from commercial district to comprehensive development district to permit the development of a 14-story mixed-use building with 99 secured rental units and commercial space over 3 levels of underground parking, a height of 150 feet with an additional height for a rooftop amenity and floor space ratio of 6.37 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation of the public hearing agenda. The following correspondence have been received since referral to the public hearing. 12 pieces of correspondence in support and 1 piece of correspondence in opposition. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Thanks very much for that. We have Scott Erdman from the Rezoning Center. Council, there are some speakers, so let's just jump right into the slide presentation and then move to the applicant team. Go ahead, staff, whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. Just want to double check that you can hear my voice and see the presentation on your screen.
We can hear your voice. Your presentation isn't quite in presentation mode. I mean, we can see it, but maybe you can blow it up a little.
How's that?
Looks good to me.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Scott Erdman, and I am the planner for this rezoning application on 41st Avenue. The site is located on the northeast corner of Cambie Street and 41st Avenue, right across the street from Oak Ridge Center. The site is currently a vacant lot and is zoned for commercial. Blocks to the north and south are also zoned for commercial, while surrounding blocks off the arterials are zoned for residential. Sites on adjacent blocks have also recently been rezoned for high-density mixed-use developments. The neighborhood is rich in amenities with schools, parks, shopping, and services all nearby. The site is also well served by transit, with a Canada Line station across the street and the R4 rapid bus service along 41st Avenue. This proposal is being considered under the Cambie Corridor Plan, which was adopted in 2018 following a comprehensive 3-phase planning program. This site is located within the Oak Ridge Municipal Town Center, and under the Cambie Plan is anticipated to develop over time into a highly urban place with a variety of mixed uses, vibrant street life, and dynamic new public spaces. At the heart of the town center are the alphabet blocks, A through H, along Cambie Street, as shown on the map, each with site-specific height limits and with density based on urban design performance. The plan identifies this block as Area D and provides direction for future development to have active commercial uses at grade, a commercial podium, and 2 towers on top, with the higher tower being up to 260 feet high. Sites A through H are all expected to deliver on-site amenities negotiated as the CAC for each project. This diagram illustrates the form of development anticipated by the plan for this block, with a major tower on the north end and a minor tower at the south end. While the plan anticipated full block development under a single application, the proposal before you tonight comprises only the southern half of this block for a minor tower, as noted in red on the image. A commercial podium with at-grade retail is expected. An additional partial story for common rooftop amenities can also be considered under the plan's built form guidelines. The proposal before you tonight is for a 14-story mixed-use building with a commercial podium and 99 secured market rental units in the tower above. A height of 150 feet and density of 6.37 FSR are proposed. The application meets the family room requirements, and common amenity spaces are proposed for the top of the roof and podium. Due to the limited development potential for a partial block site, no on-site amenity is proposed. The application was received in December of 2020 and later revised in December 2021. Processing time was extended due to these revisions. If approved, this project would generate approximately 194 new on-site and off-site jobs. Regarding the affordability of the rental units, this table shows the proposed rents in the blue column and DCL waiver maximum rents and market rates for newer buildings in the West Side in the green columns. For comparison, the costs of home ownership are shown in the orange columns. The market rental units provide a more affordable housing alternative to home ownership for more than half of Vancouver's population. A virtual open house was held in May of 2021, with 37 responses received for this application. Feedback included support for the proposed height, massing, and density, for the rental housing and retail space, and the building's design. Concerns included comments regarding the building's design, height, massing, and density, and impacts to neighborhood parking and public realm. Staff have reviewed the comments and have determined that the proposal meets the intended built form for this site under the Canby Plan. Conditions have been included to further improve the design of the proposal. This slide notes the public benefits accruing from this application, which includes the cost to secure the 99 rental housing units, a DCL payment, and a public art contribution. As noted earlier, the partial block site limited the development potential for the project, and so no on-site amenity was proposed. In conclusion, the proposed land uses, height, and density for a minor tower and podium align with the intent of the Canby Corridor Plan for this site. Staff recommend the application be approved, subject to conditions outlined in Appendix B. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Both staff and the applicant team are available for any questions you may have.
Thanks so much. I'm going to go to the applicant team. Here, would you like to speak to this or just answer questions?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's Tim Grant from PCI Developments. Nothing further from the applicant other than just to thank you for considering the application and to staff for their work with us to date on the application.
Thanks so much. Just wondering if you could pull down the presentation now so we can have the full screen. Perfect. Thank you. Questions to staff or the applicant, Councillor Kirby-Yung, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And I'll direct my first question to staff. And I know you commented a couple of times that the development potential limited the ability for on-site amenities, and yet that was the intent of the plan. So can you provide further details to why the site has that limited development potential in terms of amenities?
Sure. So when the plan was being developed with the alphabet blocks, it was anticipated that they would all come in as a full block site. However, for this one, the subject site is actually a vacant lot, whereas the remainder of the block is already developed with a 4-story building built from the early 90s. And the applicant team was not able to consolidate with that property to the north, and so they opted to submit an application for the remainder of the block, which they are permitted to do.
Okay, so in terms of when you outline sort of the potential for the other site, that potential is under a separate ownership, correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
That's right. So it's separate ownership for the remainder half to the north, and that half of the block could come forward for their own rezoning application at any point in the future if they choose to do so.
So following up on that, if that site is not consolidated, does that put the onus on the other component of the D, what was envisioned as the D block, to deliver public amenities?
So the other half.
What happens to the envisioned public amenities, I guess, in the sense that the site is not consolidated and it's now separate and split?
Yeah, in theory, the remainder half to the north, they do have actually a larger development potential than the southern half. The plan does permit consideration for a major tower with strata use up to 260 feet high. So staff would review an application and determine what the lift is, and the staff would anticipate that an on-site amenity would likely be generated from a development of that size.
Okay, and what kind of amenity would we have seen to make it explicitly if the site was consolidated?
So there's a number of options in the Cambie Corridor plan. There's 4 types of on-site amenities that applicants have an option to choose from. That could be a childcare facility, artist studios, a youth center, or a nonprofit office space. Other applications to the south that have already been approved have provided a number of those, and so for the remainder sites to the north, just thinking off the top of my head, it could be possible to perhaps provide a childcare facility, or the remainder of the nonprofit office space, or a cash CAC, or some combination thereof.
Okay, and then thank you for that. And then your presentation referenced the DCL that was payable, but not specifically a utilities DCL. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, so under the city's DCL bylaw, for-profit affordable housing can be considered waived for the citywide utilities DCL, but it would still need to pay the utilities DCL even for that residential portion. And the commercial uses have to pay for both the citywide and the utilities DCL.
Okay, so can you clarify just in the presentation on that slide, just looking at the number, why there's only reference to the DCL, not utilities DCL? I think it's the second to last slide before the conclusion.
Okay, so in my slide, it's combined, and so the figure that you see there represents the utilities DCL for the residential portion, plus the citywide and utilities DCL for the commercial component.
Okay, including commercial. Okay, thank you. I'm going to leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dejanova. Up to 5 minutes for questions. Staff or the applicant.
Thanks so much. Just a quick question to staff, just a follow-up to my colleagues' questions. This does meet policy, and my understanding from the referral report and the recommendations before us today are that it does conform with policy, and regardless of the fact that it is, as you've stated, an application that can be split, there's no reason that it's not conforming to policy here. Staff are recommending this. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councillor. Yes, the application does meet the intents and the policy of the Cambie Corridor Plan, and staff do recommend support.
Okay, thanks. That's all my questions for now.
Thanks so much. Councillor Swanson, up to 5.
Yeah, question for staff. We just finished a couple of rental rezonings that provided 20% market or below market, some of it very below market. And here we have a bunch of rentals with no affordability. So why?
So with this project, there were not any below market rents included in the proposal, and staff, as part of their review, did look at the pro forma and the financial performance of the project, and they agreed that there wasn't sufficient lift in order to provide below market rental units.
Not even with doubling the FSR, more than doubling.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. That's it for questions from council, and so I'm going to move to hearing from the public. And
I got a late question here.
Okay, Councillor Weeb.
Yeah, mine's a follow-up to Tim from Swanson's comment there. Can you speak to a little bit about why at 14 stories you weren't able to deliver a CAC or be able to bring affordable opportunities or housing to this project, recognizing you're getting 1.3 million DCL waiver as well?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Weeb. I'm going to direct that to my colleague Mario Lee in Real Estate Services.
I did that to the proponent. Actually, I was asking the proponent, recognizing Tim's quite well known as nonprofit housing and the opportunity to deliver affordable housing. So, can you speak to how you weren't able with your performa to deliver a community amenity, trying to become a community player with this project?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Weeb, for the question, and thank you for the identity as trying to be very supportive of the affordable housing effort and the city's objectives there. In this case, it's not financially feasible, and I think that the city's done a really rigorous review and supported that. The application and staff has really held us to it. It is completely in line with the Canby Corridor Plan, which provides for all market rental housing here, and including the DCL waiver is being presented tonight. And I can just reiterate it. It's just from a financial feasibility perspective, it's just not possible to include a below market element along with the entire podium being commercial space.
And there wasn't even an ability to create a nonprofit space in the commercial space. Like, there's no ability in this building to have any community amenity that delivers to the community. I'm just surprised to see this and recognizing your working community that you're not able to find a way to deliver even one affordable commercial space for a small business that's trying to make it work, or one way of trying to kind of make sure that this is adding to the community and its well-being. And with that FSR.
No, I appreciate the question, and the answer in a very genuine way is no. I think it's something that we're always trying to approach and trying to add into what we can do. And in this case, we're not able to. And we think that this application, this proposal, is a really significant improvement from a housing perspective, regardless, as it's an outdated vacant gas station site today. And so it's 99 new units, which we think is positive and a really desirable place to live.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor DeGenova, you have 4 minutes. Councillor DeGenova?
Sorry, I was double muted. Thanks. I know this is the only opportunity I have to ask the applicant.
Yep, you'll have to have your video on.
Sorry, I thought I did. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
I have been here in front of my computer. Did not realize that. I wanted to ask the applicant a question just to follow up to Councillor Reeves' question. I understand that this is delivering 99 secured market rental units. That's correct?
Yes, thanks, Councillor DeGenova. That's correct.
So my follow-up question to that, because we're talking about this specific application, is if you were to not deliver rental and you were to move forward with strata condo instead, you may have been able to provide a benefit, but there wouldn't be any rental housing. Is that correct?
I wouldn't necessarily be able to comment on that. We've really, with staff, endeavored to stick very strictly to the provisions of the Canby Corridor Plan, and so frankly, within those confines, I can't comment to what strata housing could look like here.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Perhaps if I word it this way, you chose to move forward with the 99 units of secured market rental instead of going another path because you wanted to adhere and conform to city policy as closely as possible. Is that correct?
Yes, and also from our perspective, rental housing is something we're very focused on in the city.
Okay, thanks so much. Just wanted to clarify that, and I'm sure you looked at a number of different options within the Canby Corridor Plan. I understand that this council has considered the Canby Corridor Plan extensively and has asked staff to look at that, but that's a policy conversation, so I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Great. Okay, we're going to go to the public now. And the first speaker is, what we got here? Tracy Bashara.
Pretty close. Good evening, Mayor, Stewart, and Council. I'm Tracy Bashara, the Executive Director at Marple Oak Ridge Family Place. I used to live in the Marple area when my children were young, but now I'm in the Delta area. But I have been working in the area for over 20 years. I am in support of the development, and we are just up the street from the development on the Canada line. And so there are lots of services that we offer in a city-owned building that was built through a CAC contribution from a previous development. And so it is a short Canada Line ride to where we are and to the neighborhood house that's also in a city-owned building in the Marpole area. So the market rental is welcome in the area, and it is more expensive than typical, but there are demand for new market rentals with in-suite amenities, and folks who can afford these rents will hopefully choose to live here and leave the older rental stock in the area for others that desperately rely on it. The great location on transit allow future residents and employees to connect all across the region by transit, and it is a short distance, like I said, on the train to places like ours. And the short building of 14 stories does not infringe on the skyline and fully conforms to the Canby plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I don't see any questions for you, so I'll move to the next speaker. Speaker number 2, Margarita Dovko.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate being here. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm a resident of Vancouver. My name is Margarita Dovgal, and I'm speaking tonight in support of this application on 41st and Canby. It's a neighborhood I know pretty well. I used to live in the area when I went to UBC. I now live about 20 blocks away in South Vancouver, so it's practically in my backyard. But in short, I think this proposal, like many of those that are coming to council lately, really represents an opportunity to improve much-needed housing, to provide more homes for families and individuals in proximity to transit, retail, schools, and so many more of these things that we want as a city. And ultimately, it couldn't come at a more critical time. I'm a renter here in Vancouver. I'm pretty well acquainted with the challenges finding housing, and fortunately, this is an area that's been pegged as one with additional density and services. There's a development of Oak Ridge across the road, so really it's an ideal location for a multi-story, multi-unit residential development. The reality is that the housing status quo in the city of Vancouver continues to be deeply exclusionary. Every little bit, including projects like this one, help challenge what appears to me to be a very deeply broken paradigm. And, if we approve things like this, it provides a pathway to more supply at a time when vacancy rates are critically low. People who work and want to live in the city are being pushed out. When I was studying at UBC, I lived in a number of exceedingly sketchy basement rental suites nearby, and the first one I lived in, just a couple of blocks away from this development, was barely fit for human habitation. And of course, there being areas of highly usable land that are like this law right now sitting vacant, in juxtaposition to people living in units like that, is a little bit ironic. But in my case, it was the very best that I could do on a very limited student budget. And of course, we live in a city with a heavily constrained rental supply. I'm now a young professional. I'm in a much better situation. My budget for housing is greatly improved, but it's still not easy to find rental housing. And my partner and I have been lucky. We now rent with our small little dog here in South Vancouver. But many of my peers, including those both younger and older than us, live in basement units, which used to be just a thing. You had your kids living in your basement, or, maybe you had a student there for a couple of months. But sometimes they're great. Sometimes they're really cramped or outdated. And a significant number of folks living across the city who would otherwise rent in a building like this one actually can't, because the supply is just not there. So more supply like this coming online would be just a fantastic way to free up space in rental units across the city. And with respect, finally, to this specific project, I can only imagine how convenient it would be, whether you're a young person commuting to school at UBC or Langara, or you're hopping on the Canada Line to go downtown to an office. That's 99 units, again, in a market with massive demand. And I can see it providing homes for young families, especially given the great amenities already in that area. Overall, I support additional rental and density in all areas of the city. It seems like this project would feel like a natural fit. The city's doing some phenomenal work right now, planning the Canby Corridor and the evolution of the Oak Ridge project. So I really like how this would complement the surrounding neighborhood, really maximize the potential of the neighborhood amenities that are already here. So yeah, I would just say finally, it'd be a shame to wait for Oak Ridge to be more built out for projects like this to come. We really need to do our best to have rental housing and transit completed as soon as possible. That would fit well with our city's efforts to advance environmental sustainability. So I really hope everyone here approves it. Thank you for the chance to call in and really appreciate the opportunity to voice my support for the project.
Thank you. I don't see any questions for you, but thank you so much for calling in. We're going to move to the third speaker, Samuel Halwell.
Yeah, hi there. Good evening, Mayor Stewart and members of council. My name is Sam Halwell. I'm a student at SFU with most of my classes currently at the SFU Harbor Center campus. I'm a longtime Vancouver resident calling to speak in support of the rental housing proposal at Canby and 41st Avenue. I pass by this site on my daily commute as I walk to the SkyTrain station. I've always speculated on its usage, given that the site has been vacant for so long on my daily commute. I've lived in this neighborhood for over a decade, and as far back as I can remember, it's always been, quite the eyesore, just because it's been like an empty pit. That being said, I will keep my comments brief, as I believe this type of rental housing should take up little time in front of City Council. I'm pleased that this vacant lot proposed to enhance our neighborhood by providing a 14-story building that's 100% secured rental located on Canby Corridor, where significant redevelopment has been proposed near future shops, services, and amenities for a growing and evolving neighborhood. It's near future parks and accessible community spaces currently under redevelopment, being the expansion of the Oak Ridge Center, which are desirable for individuals like myself to meet up with friends for low-budget social gatherings and accessible spaces. This proposed development is uniquely positioned at the crossroads of education institutions of SFU, UBC, and Langara College. Hopping on a quick SkyTrain ride to SFU Harbor Center is very convenient for myself and other individuals. If I'm able to pursue my postgrad at SFU, I envision myself hopping on the R4 straight to campus. Rapid transit available to residents is robust with connections to downtown Richmond and other parts of the city. A couple more points. Given its location across the street from Oak Ridge Park, I appreciate the simple building with large windows and street fronting bank within the podium. As a proponent of rental housing and building density on transit, I hope council can agree this project is a no-brainer that will fill in some gaps in density along the corridor. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I don't see any questions for you, so I'll just thank you for calling in tonight, and I'll make my first call for other speakers. 1-833-353-8610, code 1061445 £. Clerks, have we got anybody else on the line or in the chambers?
No additional speakers, Mayor.
Thanks. Second call then. Same number, same participant code. It's on Twitter and the live stream. Clerks, anybody slip in there while we're...
Still no speakers, Mayor.
Okay, great. We'll go for the third call. We'll take 5 minutes. It's 9:03. We'll come back at 9:08 just to finish this item.
No additional speakers, Mayor.
Great, so we're going to close the speakers list and we close the receipt of public comments. I'm going to ask staff if they have any closing comments.
No comments from staff. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Applicant, any closing comments?
Nothing from the applicant. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks very much. Council, any questions to staff on this? Don't see any, so maybe somebody will move the
So
report.
moved. Councillor Duchenova.
Seconder.
Second, Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. We're on anybody want to speak to this item? Councillor Dejanova, please go ahead. Up to 5.
Thanks so much. I'll be brief, but I wanted to thank the applicant for answering my questions. Thank staff for the answers to the other questions. There might be a timer on there. I'll just wait for that. And also wanted to thank the speakers. I do appreciate the confines of the policy of the Canby corridor. Can be difficult. We as a council have dealt with the policy, understanding that we sit in a quasi-judicial body in public hearing and that we have to consider the policy and whether or not this meets policy. And it's very strict as to, how we have to consider if this does conform to policy and will fit in the community. That being said, I've heard every single council member, advocate over this term and even during my last term on council for more secured market rental. And I see that this project will deliver 99 units of that. And I think that it's important to note that. And the council has, in our policy, said that in itself is an amenity. It's a public benefit. And that's something that we consider. So in considering all of that and the merits of the project, I will be supporting this project. And I'll leave my comments there because it's the late hour. Thank you.
Councillor Kirby-Young?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I will also be very brief. I go by this empty block or empty corner often, and it's a little bit sad, actually. And I think a lot of people have been hoping to see this brought to life, and it will be nice to see, instead of an empty kind of raised lot, it actually utilized in 99 new rental homes, which I think complements a lot of the strata that has already been put into the Canby corridor. And with respect to the commercial, I think I would note that there's a huge opportunity here because there's a real dearth of options in this neighborhood for locally serving food, cafe, retail shops, anything to support daily needs, which pending any of that coming through at Oak Ridge, there is just, it's sort of often termed a food desert. Like there is literally nothing other than one Starbucks and a liquor store for people to be able to go and pick up their daily needs or visit a little cafe or restaurant or meet somebody for lunch or a cup of coffee. So I'm really hopeful that there'll be some consideration to locally serving retail in terms of those day-to-day needs and just places for people to meet up and enjoy. The restaurants have gone. The grocery has gone. We've put a lot of housing into this area, but we haven't put those needs in there. So we've got transit. There we have, we're diversifying the housing mix. We're seeing some community amenities coming in, but we are still forcing people to travel for their daily needs, and that doesn't make sense in terms of complete community. So I'm hopeful that there'll be some real thought given to utilization of the commercial space in a way that would serve local area residents. But I am very happy to support the new rental housing. Thank you.
Councillor Swanson?
Yeah, I would be able to go for this if there was some affordability in it, just a little iota of affordability. But it looks like the owner is going to be making money from the commercial spaces on the bottom, from the rental spaces on the top. And I basically just don't see what we're getting out of it. So it's a no for me.
Okay, that looks like it for comments, so we'll go to the vote. Councillor Bly and Kirby-Young. Sorry, Bly and, yeah, Councillor Bly. Okay, that passes with Councillor Swanson in opposition. Thanks very much, Council. The last item of the night, Council Clerks, do we We need to change over before we get to this next item, West 41st.
No, Mayor, staff are ready to go.
Great, okay. So let's have the clerk read the application and summary of correspondence.
This is an application by Armo Matisse Architecture to amend the existing comprehensive development district at 809 West 41st Avenue to permit the development of an 18-story mixed-use building with ground floor commercial space and 131 secured rental residential units, with 20% of the residential floor area secured as moderate income rental housing units over 3 levels of underground parking. A height of 199 feet with additional height for a rooftop and amenity and a floor space ratio of 7.11 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation of the public hearing agenda. The following correspondence has been received since referral to the public hearing. 10 pieces of correspondence in support, 8 pieces of correspondence in opposition, and 3 pieces of correspondence dealing with other aspects of the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Thank you. Council, we do have speakers to this, so let's check out the Scott Urban from the Rezoning Center has some slides to show us. So please go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to double check again that you can hear my voice and that you can see the presentation on your screen.
Sure can.
Super. So good evening again, Mayor and Council. It's Scott Erdman with another rezoning application on 41st Avenue. The site is located at the northwest corner of 41st Avenue and Willow Street and is currently a 2-story office building known as the Oakmont Medical Center. The Oak Ridge Transit Center site is next door, the Jewish Community Center is across the street, and Oak Ridge Center is just 2 blocks to the east. The area is undergoing significant change, and all 3 of these sites have recently been rezoned for large new developments. Adjacent blocks have seen new mid-rise buildings recently built, while blocks to the northeast are zoned for residential. Again, this is a neighborhood rich in amenities with schools, parks, shopping and services, and it's well served by transit, both Rapid Bus and the Canada Line station, just a couple blocks to the east. This site is within the scope of the Oak Ridge Transit Center and adjacent sites policy statement, as one of 3 adjacent sites identified for future redevelopment. The vision of the policy statement was for these areas to contain a mix of uses and built forms, with a range of housing tenures and local serving retail, focused around a new central park and childcare center. For this site, the policy statement anticipated a mixed use or residential building up to 6 stories and 2.5 FSR. Proposals should provide a form of development that acts as a transition between taller buildings on the OTC site and mid-rise buildings to the east along 41st Avenue. In a 2019 issues report, Council directed staff to consider additional density for the OTC and adjacent sites and other large sites in Vancouver for proposals that include moderate income rental housing. The issues report noted that the final density would be determined during a rezoning process, subject to urban design performance on a site-by-site basis. The proposal before you tonight is for an 18-story mixed-use building with ground floor commercial retail units and 131 secured rental units in the tower above. 20% of the residential floor area, or approximately 21 units, would be secured for moderate income rental units. A height of 199 feet, a density of 7.11 FSR are proposed. The application exceeds the family room minimum requirements, and common amenity spaces are proposed for the top of the roof and podium. The application was received in March 2021, and if approved, the project would generate approximately 245 new on-site and off-site jobs. Regarding the affordability of the rental units, this table shows the proposed rents for the below market units in the blue column and market rates for newer buildings in the west side in the green columns. For comparison, the cost of home ownership is shown in orange. The proposed rental units, and especially the below market rental units, offer a more affordable housing alternative to home ownership. A virtual open house was held in April of 2021, and staff have received 16 responses. Feedback included support for the proposed height, massing, density, and design, and for the rental housing, including the below market units. Concerns included comments regarding the building's height, massing, and density, and the amount of parking proposed. Staff have reviewed the comments and have determined that the proposed form of development is appropriate for the evolving neighborhood context and as a transition between the adjacent future higher buildings on the OTC site and the mid-rise buildings to the east. The taller form also makes viable the delivery of below market rental units. Regarding parking, this site is eligible for parking reductions given its proximity to transit. This slide notes the public benefits accruing from this application, which includes the cost to secure the 131 rental housing units, with 20% of the residential floor area secured for moderate income rental housing units, in addition to a DCL payment and a public art contribution. In conclusion, the proposed land uses, height, and density align with the intent of the OTC policy statement and the 2019 issues report for this site for delivering rental and moderate income rental housing units. Staff recommend the application be approved, subject to conditions outlined in Appendix B. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Staff and the applicant team are here for any questions you may have.
Great, so let's, thanks for that. We'll move to the applicant team. And is the applicant team here? Would you like to say anything or just answer questions?
Sure, Arno Mattis here, Arno Mattis Architecture. We're going to waive the presentation, but we're happy to answer any questions that council might have.
Great, thank you so much. If you could, staff could just pull down their presentation so we can just have the full screen, that would be great. Thank you. And we do have questions. Councillor Carr, 5 minutes to staff or the applicant.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, only have one question, Mayor, and that is to staff. I noticed that this is, you talk about it as a moderate income rental project, but not the MERP, the whole, I imagine it's not considered as part of the MERP programming. So I'm wondering, is there vacancy control, which the MERP program did have?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Carr. I'll defer to my colleagues in housing to elaborate on that further.
Hello, Alexander Brzezowski, housing planner here. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, can.
Yes. This project will follow the MERP style in terms of vacancy control. The starting rents will be able to increase the allowable increase, but upon turnover, they're only allowed to be increased as per the allowable annual increase.
Great, good to hear. Thank you. Thanks, Mayor. That's my question.
Thanks.
Point of privilege, could staff just repeat the last part of the answer? It was garbled. I couldn't catch that.
Sure.
The sound quality wasn't poor. Thanks.
No problem. The only allowable increase upon turnover will be the annual allowable increase.
Okay, so effectively vacancy control, is that correct? I just want to make sure because I didn't hear properly.
You can put yourself in the queue if you want to ask questions. I've got Councillor Weeb in the queue next. Go ahead, Councillor Weeb.
Yeah, the UDP had a couple comments about making sure the 7th outdoor amenity was accessible and providing cooling in the building. I'm just wondering if those were dealt with through the process.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Weeb. I'll defer to Omar in Urban Design to respond to this.
Omar Al-Jabouri, development planner. So with respect to the outdoor amenities, staff have included conditions to address having access to the rooftop of the podium for the use of amenities.
Okay, so it's accessible. That's correct?
Do you mean accessible in terms of having access to it, or in terms of accessibility?
ADP asked for it to be accessible amenity that it wasn't currently, and so I'm just want to make sure it's accessible.
Right.
I'm not sure definition. And then the second was it talked about ensuring that there was heat pumps and that there was cooling in this building.
So in terms of the accessibility, currently the project does not propose access to the rooftop of the podium, but the condition is asking them to provide that access. As for the cooling, it's provided to the applicant as a consideration for design development to include passive and sustainable modes of ventilation, including mechanical.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thanks. Councillor Kirby-Young, up to 5.
Yeah, thanks. Just following up on that clarification because the audio was poor for me. Sorry, I just want to affirm that I heard correctly. So it's vacancy control effectively on those units. They're not reset to current CMHC average rents and then 20% below that. They effectively are affordable at level in perpetuity with only the allowable annual rent increase. Is that correct?
Yep, that's what I heard. But
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
Just staff, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Vacancy control.
Okay. And then following up on Councillor Weed's question with respects to understanding the proportion of amenity that is the indoor versus outdoor space. Wanting to understand that explicitly because we're hearing a lot of feedback about wanting more access to outdoor space.
Sorry, could you elaborate a little bit on the question in terms of the proportions?
Well, you typically have the indoor and then the outdoor amenity, and I'm just trying to get clarity on the allocation of space between indoor and outdoor.
So currently the project proposes indoor amenity on top of the tower that is co-located to outdoor amenities. And in terms of the proportions and the size, these are guided by the city's guidelines for high density developments. As for the podium, currently there is no access to the outdoor space, but the conditions of approvals include an ask for having access to that outdoor space, provided that there is indoor amenity that is co-located to it to complement it.
Okay, so there's 2 questions on that then. The first one on the guidelines, you said it's per the city guidelines. My question explicitly is what is the guideline in the allocation between the indoor and outdoor?
So for the indoor amenities, there's a minimum 400 square feet. And typically with projects, staff look at the proportions relative to the number of family housing. So at the DP stage, staff look at the functionality of these spaces and how much they could provide for recreational use.
Okay, so minimum 400 square feet, but no requirement for outdoor. I'm just trying to get down to numbers here in terms of or percentage in terms of allocation. Is there any requirement that you must have an accompanying or a ratio of outdoor space in that policy?
Well, the exact proportions are going to differ depending on the size of the project, but we start with the minimum, the 400 square feet for the indoor amenities. So that is the bare minimum, and the remainder of the floor plate, which is typically, in this case, it's a 6,000 square foot floor plate. So the remainder of that minus the 400 would be for outdoor space.
Okay, thanks. And then to your second point, just to clarify, when you said the condition is asking for access to that podium level outdoor space if it's contiguous to an indoor space. So if they don't provide an indoor space, does that mean people do not get access to an outdoor space? I'm trying to be
Sorry
very...
to clarify, no, it's not. If they provide indoor amenity space, we look for both. So outdoor amenity space will be complemented with indoor amenity space.
So it will be a condition.
Yeah, and it's supplemental to the amenity at the top of the tower.
Okay, So in very simple layman's terms, so I'm sorry if I'm tired or I'm just not understanding the phrasing, but tenants will have access to outdoor space on the podium.
Correct.
Yes, no, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, that's it. So we're gonna go to the public now for comment. We have the first speaker is Alan Tam. Alan Tam, speaker number 1.
Hi, can you hear me?
Sure can, up to 5 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to speak. I'll keep it brief. I'm a resident of the 35-unit townhouse complex immediately north of 809 West 41st. We're a townhouse complex that is 3 stories high. We're situated one single-lane alley north of the subject property. Our residents comprised of families and retirees, and many of our families and retirees use the courtyard gardens for growing food, specifically things like tomato plants. I'm here on behalf of many of the residents that have voiced some concerns over the height of the proposed building. In general, the residents understand that rental housing is important, and we generally support the development of our neighborhood. We, in general, oppose the application because of the dramatic reduction in the direct sunlight to a complex during the spring and fall seasons. This is in consideration and expectation that the transit yard has extremely high-story buildings. We noted in our review of the application booklet that on page 42, the height response, the diagram shows a proposed 18-story building in line with an increasing height to a 26-story building that is proposed at the JCC site. However, that 26-story building is on the westernmost portion of that property, closest to Oak Street, and directly across from the subject property. That application is for an 8-story building, and it looks to be as part of a podium. And also on page 76, the shadow study, on the equinox of both the fall and the spring, 50% of the complex is in shadows from basically 10:30 to 1:30 p.m. The application booklet, in our opinion, minimizes the impact to our complex by selectively choosing which building to compare to and only presenting the most favorable view. In our opinion, the height difference of 15 stories is not acceptable when our complex is only one lane alley away. And we invite council to come to our neighborhood and walk the neighborhood and see for themselves. We were expecting a 6 to 8-story building to be more in line with the buildings that are currently existing within the immediate area and also in line with those proposed on West 41st between the transit yard and the Oak Ridge Development Project. Some of the buildings that currently exist is the one on the other side of Willow, which is 785 West 41st. And as an example, on the other side of West 41st, there is a proposed 8-story building. I understand that there are other benefits, tax revenue, all of the moderate housing, income housing, and we just want to be heard. We feel that during the process that our needs and the impact to our complex has not been heard. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I don't see any questions for you, so I am going to move to the next speaker, who is Patrick Zhao, speaker number 2. Hi there, up to 5 minutes, whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Thanks for having me. My mother tongue language is not English, so I will try my best to speak as clearly and slowly as I can. We live in the same townhouse as the first speaker does, but I'm representing myself. So we're on the southern side of the road, which is just meters away from this subject property, and basically we spend a lot in the property we live in, and to have ourselves to own a home, even though it is not that affordable. From my point of view, I strongly oppose this 18-story proposal as it is ridiculous and unacceptable. Firstly, this proposed 18-story, the height, is too high. so that the sunshine, the sun shadow will put all our townhouses mostly in dark most of the time all year. And this is going to damage not only the plants, trees, whatever, but impact the health of people, especially for those seniors and the sick people. Secondly, the proposal has 131 units with only 43 parking spaces. I think this is a big problem for the existing parking issue. Street parking in front of our townhouse will not be possible, and more commercial parking will turn this quiet alley on the west of Willow Street into a busy commercial trucks and parking traffic area, increasing noise right out of our living rooms and bedroom windows. And so this 7.1 FSR, I think it's like for downtown area, but not for this area. Not last but not least, I think the developer maybe consider the transition between this subject property and the western one, the 22 and the OTC one. Yeah, it's like a transition between west and east, but they didn't consider. We are in the north, just meters away from them. We are just a 3-story. This is like from the 18-story down to 3-story. This is a huge difference. So what if something drops? This is like dangerous for us because this is a huge difference in terms of the height. If something falls off and hits our roof or in our yard or directly on people, it might be dangerous. So this is something like, we're a big concern to us. So we have been worried about this. We're worried about everything on the top every day. So yeah. So I'm just wondering, who can guarantee this is not going to happen once this 18-story high-rise has been constructed? What is the setback for safety? What is the general FSR along 41st Avenue? So is this going to change, or I have no idea. So at least from my point of view, we cannot tackle the affordability by sacrificing the living environment or even the lives of other people of the existing neighborhood. And so this is my point of view for the time being. We're really concerned. We just moved in a month ago and they put a lot in this property. And we know it is not easy to solve the affordability issue, but we need equity and justice. And we need your councillors and mayor to protect us to save us from this. And we think they should keep the 6 to 8 story as it was planned before. I think it's reasonable. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't see any questions for you, so we are going to move on to the next speaker, but thank you so much for phoning in. Council, our next and final listed speaker on this item is Neil White. Speaker number 3, Neil White.
Yes, hello.
Hi there. You have up to 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Yes, I am the president of the strata that Alan and Patrick belong to. I wasn't able to reply with the names of the people, but I speak for more than myself. I speak for multiple people in the 37-unit complex that we are affected by the height of this building. We've contracted and spoke with our horticulturist and our landscaping. They've informed us that the plants, trees, shrubs, etc., will die off or have to be replaced because of the shadow cast from this building that will affect us. 18 stories is approved based on, as Alan so eloquently pointed out, the OTC stories height that is proposed and approved by council for future development. And that becomes the point of it's approved for future development. It hasn't actually gone through development. It hasn't been approved in that sense. So they're basing this development on something that is going to happen in the future. The 18 stories is in the diagram. What page is it? Sorry, I don't have the page number. But anyway, it shows the future OTC approved 20 stories, replacing our existing townhouses. And that means that, you know, they've gone to city, they've approved it and said, well, we're just going to wipe these people out and put in a 20-story, and then for 26 stories, we'll have a natural stepping factor going north-south and east-west into the other OTC property. But I ask you, when is this supposed to happen? Like, you know, we have people that just bought these properties. We have young families that are moving in that because of the proximity for schools that are looking to be there 5, 10, 12 years in order to bring their children to these schools and have them in their community. And they're not looking to have their places sold out from underneath them or forced out from them to have a 20-story building which is approved to be constructed in order to meet the stepping requirements. If we look at the block going down Willow, 37 to 38, 37th Street to 38, you see that there's a new townhouse development that is mirroring the complete block of Willow, which is ours, brown brick, roof, 3 stories. And that whole block is going to continue to be the exact same continuation of townhouses, 3 stories. This building is going to be for a long period of time dwarfing us and putting us in harm's way, as Patrick was stating. The lane and the proposed walkway, which is going to take up close to our lane, very close to our lane, and that's our entrance to our underground, which is going to make it difficult for our rubbish removal, their big trucks to be able to go underneath and pull them out and our bins out and get them to the street. But when you look at the design of this building with balconies and open air access, 15 stories above R3, that's 150 feet. And if you do the math, that's 61 miles per hour for some kid who happens to throw their toy truck over the balcony, or some reveille people happen to spill a bottle or a drink or something over the edge. That's a serious concern because of the proximity to our buildings, to our courtyard, and to the health and safety of the people below. The other aspect is the parking. 131 units and 43 parking spaces, that's just ridiculous. So what this building is looking to do is rely on street parking, which is the street parking for our block, and our neighbors will be eaten up by people who are going to reside in this area. Having 77% ratio of people that are going to work on the transit line or work on the bicycle route and only have bicycles or use transit is not realistic. We just don't have the concentration of economic drivers of businesses and job security on that route that is going to meet this requirement.
Thanks so much. You are at time and you don't have questions, so I just want to thank you so much for calling in this evening and expressing your views on that. Thanks so much. Council, so we're at the end of our list. I am going to call for the first time. Clerks, is there anybody on the line or in chambers?
No additional speakers, Mayor.
And I'll take that with the second call, that we have no one on the line or in chambers. So we'll take 5 minutes, Council. I'll make my third call now. We'll come back at 9:48 to hopefully finish this item. Okay, thanks. We'll see you in 5 minutes. there's anybody else speak to this item?
No speakers, Mayor.
Great. So I'm going to close the speakers list and close the receipt of public comment. Go to the staff and see if there's any final comments from staff.
No closing comments from staff. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks. Applicant, any closing comments?
No further comments from us.
Great. I'll go to that. I don't see any questions from council. So, oh, Councillor Dejanova.
Just happy to move adoption considering we're 9:47, Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Dominato. And I'll go to debate. Any debate on this item? Okay, thank you. So I'll call the vote.
Vote assist in favor.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. That is unanimous. Thank you so much, Council. Motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kirby-Young, Councillor Dejanova. Good work today, Council. All in favor of adjourning?
Yay.
Opposed? We are adjourned. That's everything good, clerks? Do we have anything else?
All good. Thanks, Mayor.
See you
Thanks,
tomorrow.
everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mayor.
everyone.
Thanks, staff.
Okay, bye.
See you tomorrow.